Yeah, that's been working.
Morgan, you ready? All right. This is the call to order. This is the Dearborn Village Commission hearing for November 3rd, 2021. It is 4 p.m. We're here at 111 North Front Street, second floor of room 204. The next business meeting will be Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021 at 12 p.m. Here, same building, same room. The next hearing will be Wednesday, December 1st, 2021 at 4 p.m. Again, here, 111 North Front Street, room 204. Move to swearing in of staff. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Morgan Graff, and I do.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the introduction of commissioners present. We'll start on the left.
Teresa Durst.
Karen McCoy.
Anthony Hartke, Chair.
Jeff Ferriel. Brent Foley. Ned Thiel.
For anybody who's here in attendance, please follow the City of Columbus's COVID-19 Safe Workplace Practices Guidance version 17. When we get to items for public forum, any person wish to address the commission on matters not on the posted agenda are invited to do so. However, the commission and I will undertake extended conversation or discussion to act on non-agenda items. Communication should be kept to a 3-minute limit. Are there any items for public forum this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to the staff approvals. Staff approvals begin on page 11 of the agenda. Commissioners, a minute here to look through those. And your recusals. Right, hearing no recusals. Is there a motion on these staff approvals?
Mr. Chair, I so move. Second.
Are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it, motion passes. And we'll move on to the minutes from last meeting, October 6, 2021. Is there a motion on the minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Questions on the motion? Those in favor? Against? Ayes have it, motion passes. And the minutes from October special meeting from October 19, 2021.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve. Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it, motion passes. Move on to the staff reports. Move on to the applications for certificates of appropriateness. Item 1 is a staff recommendation, GV-21-11-021, 231 East Livingston. Applicant here for 231 East Livingston, come on up. If you please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth,
Yes.
and please state your name for the record.
Michelle Applebaum.
Thank you very much. All right, Morgan.
Application number GV 21-11-021, 231 East Livingston Avenue. Proposed work description is to replace existing non-illuminated projecting sign, with a new non-illuminated sign, and a new aluminum mounting arm. New sign will look identical to existing sign. Dimensions to be 2 feet 3 inches in height and 4 feet wide. Sign body is to be fabricated in 1-inch deep aluminum with digitally printed wood grain. Graphics be routed a 1/2 inch thick acrylic and be painted gold. Mounting arm is to be 3 inches by 3 1/4 inches. Wall aluminum tube with a 12-inch by 12-inch by 1/2 inch thick aluminum plate. Sign to be installed via mortar joints and not into masonry. Staff analysis includes existing sign was approved in January 2013 at the size of 4 feet by 3 feet. Staff notes other commissions permit 12 square foot signage. Staff recommends approval of any and all clarification to be submitted to HBO staff to review and approval prior to issuance of the certificate on the conditions of the sign to be installed via mortar joints based off of German Village guidelines for graphics and signage, page 131.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant have anything else to add?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Any questions, comments from the commission?
Mr. Chair, on application item number GB 21-11021, I move to approve as submitted.
Second. Are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Against? Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you very much. Move ahead to item number 2, a continued application, GB-21-09-027, 685 South 3rd Street. Would you please raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And please state your name for the record.
Brad Baker.
Baker? Morning.
Item number 2, GB 21-09-027, 685 South 3rd Street. Proposed work description is to remove and replace existing slate for main house with new GAF slate line and weathered slate, which is from the approved shingles list. Install new flanges around soil stacks with 28 gauge pre-finished chimney flashing, red metal ridge rolls. Install 6 additional aluminum roof louvers and pre-finished aluminum drip edging above gutter edge. Staff received slate assessment on 7/20/21. Assessment states that slate shingles roof is extensively deteriorated. Ribbon black slate is very old and splitting apart, and that ribbons are very weak. Based on the submitted photos and evaluation, the slate appears to be largely in poor condition. Staff emailed applicant recommending ventilation that would be more appropriate in German Village. At the September business meeting, the commission requested a product specification of the louvers, as well as a drawing between the louvers location. Applicant has updated their application, agreeing to install a ridge vent under the new metal ridge cap for attic ventilation in agreement with staff recommendation. Staff recommends approval of any and all clarification to be submitted to HBO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of certificate, with conditions that venting be formed on the roof edge or roof ridge underneath the metal roof roll via cobra vent, vent shore, or comparable in lieu of hat vents or soffit vents. Staff also recommends removing the existing vent when performing the roof replacement. This is based off of and consistent with CC 311611 standards of alteration number 6.
Does the applicant have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Any questions, comments from the commission?
So the existing ridge vents are going to be removed. Existing vents are going to be removed.
Yes, and omitted and venting under the ridge bill.
Okay.
Is the Kevin Robinson who did the slate assessment,
Yes.
is he doing the new roof as well?
No, he submitted a quote for the new roof, exceeded 35.
Gotcha.
Sure, on item 2, GB 2109-27, 685 South 3rd Street, I move to approve as submitted.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 3 has been tabled at the applicant's request. We'll move on to item 4, GB-21-09-028, 180 Thurman Avenue. Applicant here for 180 Thurman Avenue. Stack. This is the second time.
Yeah,
Second or third?
this is the second time that they've been on the agenda.
We'll come back at the end of the meeting. All right, we'll move ahead to item 5, GV-21-10-023, 862 Mohawk Street. Need application. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do. William Hugus, architect.
You're good. Morgan?
Application number GB 21-10-023, 862 Mohawk Street. Proposed work is to request variances recommendations to construct a carriage house in place of a non-contributing garage. These are CC 33-32-18D, lot coverage from 50% to 36.9%. CC 33-32-21, building lines from 10 feet to 0 feet existing. CC 33-32-26, minimum side yard permitted from 3 feet to 2 feet existing. CC 33, 32, 26E, minimum side yards permitted from 3 feet to 2 feet garage. CC 33, 32, 38G, private garage to increase allowable height of a detached garage from 15 feet to 24.6 feet. CC 33, 32, 38H, private garage to allow a habitable guest suite in the second story of a detached garage. Letters to neighbors have been mailed. Staff analysis at the June business meeting, the commission noted the application may run into lot coverage variances since the application involves a carriage house. The application was reviewed conceptually at the July 2021 German Village Commission hearing to remove existing non-contributing garage and construct a new carriage house. Use variances and side yard variances are to be expected. Commissioners commented that massing appears simple and inappropriate. At the recent October business meeting, the commission noted that the lot coverage will be rather low. The commission also noted that the variance recommendation and overall design should happen around the same time for commission review. Staff recommends that the commission recommend approval to the BZA as submitted based off of 31-16-14 standards of demolition, 31-16-12 standards of new construction, and German Village guidelines, new buildings, garages, and outbuildings, page 113, number 1.
Anything else to add?
Not really. Sorry, we had to continue last month. I was down for the count.
There's two of us.
This carriage house is merely a space above with a full bath, but no kitchen, no cooking facility.
But we have not approved anything yet, correct?
Correct.
We usually approve the zoning after we approve the design.
That's the reverse of what I've experienced, but okay.
Typically what we've done.
We're expecting to come back in the December meeting for approval of the city council's waiting on this. This is the last, every city office has reviewed it except German Village.
But we're approving variances for a design, we don't know what it is. Or it's not approved.
Well, we're committing to this elevation, the two elevations I gave.
You're asking for us to approve that
Well,
in this?
but I don't have all four elevations, but yes, I mean, we'd be glad to get the approval or approval intent of this elevation. We're not changing
Okay,
it.
but we've had the discussion about the elevation. Hate to be difficult, Bill.
Well, it's a catch-22. What's chicken or the egg? The city wants you to give a recommendation on the variances before we can hear it at city council.
Historically, this commission has given those recommendations on the variances after we've approved the design.
That's not been my experience.
Say 9 times out of 10, give or take, we usually see the variances and the design at the same time, same meeting, and we have voting for both at the same meeting.
Well, we're willing to commit to the elevations we've done and the heights and everything. It's a matter of getting paperwork done. I apologize. I would have thought the process would have been a little smoother, but between COVID and other issues, it's just been a choppy mess.
Bill, is there anything on the elevations as shown that caused you heartache?
Have a look at it.
Okay.
Wasn't asked to look at them, not part of this process, not part of this piece of the application.
Well, we did come in for a conceptual review before we got too far with this. And this is a reflection of that review.
Other commissioners? Comments?
I mean, I apologize if the process is, to my perception, different. I would have taken care of this last month, but I couldn't make it. And then we lost quorum, so we couldn't get it reviewed that way.
How many square feet was the existing garage, or is the existing garage? How big is the current garage building to be
It's
demolished?
a two-car tandem garage built in the 80s.
how many square feet is it?
It's 12 by probably 38. This new garage is virtually the same length. It just sits slightly different on the site. And it's a width difference plus the second story.
A lot more square footage.
Yeah.
So the lot coverage reduction? What's your lot coverage now with the garage?
It's on the variance request.
Yeah, because it went from 36 to 50? That's what I was.
It depends on, see, with a carriage house with no cooking, which means it doesn't get a separate address on Lozelle, zoning treats it differently in terms of types of variances. So lot coverage gets defined in a different way. This is not exceeding the 50% in a practical sense at all. It's a really long skinny property.
So when you say practical, what do you mean?
Well, there's provision in the code, you half the alley and
Yeah.
when you have two separate uses on the same lot, from the current zoning code, it's a mess.
Yeah.
Then how do you define rear yard? And they go through that whole process. Hopefully they'll clear that up when they rewrite the zoning code. Don't hold your breath on that.
Bill, what's the height of the primary structure? What's the height of the primary structure?
Well, it's a two-story brick and shake. And the first level ceilings are at 9 feet, 10 feet, and the spring line's 7 feet, and it's a 12-12 pitch, so it's probably 8, 15, 16, and 25 feet. But I might add, they're very separate structures because of the length of the lot. What I did was kept this structure in line with the neighboring to the south. I didn't want to exceed that.
So I'm concerned that this is a pretty big secondary structure compared to the dimensions of the house.
It is. I don't think it's excessive, given the flanking houses on the alley, Macon Alley.
I guess my concern is that we're seeing a proliferation of carriage houses associated with primary structures that historically would have never had a secondary structure of this proportion. And it's changing the architectural character of the neighborhood. And this isn't the only one on tonight's agenda.
I think this one's better situated to what is in the surroundings of that. That's nice.
Yeah, the house to the north is a new build in the late 80s. It's a full two-story, much taller. The house to the south, we're holding that at the 24.5 feet because that's what that house is. The ones across the street are 2 stories.
And the garage to the south is a story in it.
Yeah. Across the street.
No, beyond Burles. Beige white trim.
Oh, yes, yes.
Barney. Past the house.
We have pushed it back so that it doesn't exceed the setback to the south, which is these most historic structure.
I think from a streetscape perspective, I think it fits in the massing. Streetscape.
I agree.
Part of the effort to reduce the scale on Macon was this brick wall, screen wall, like a garden wall that hides a balcony and cuts the scale right closest to Macon.
There's a few examples of that language throughout the village that we've seen.
Yeah,
That's not bad.
yeah.
In fact, there's one, I think, on the annex of Lansing.
To-
Up there.
52 maybe back. Our conceptual review was we were going to do shakes like to match the front house top half. The front house was a 1.5-story cottage, all brick. And at some point later, and they've added the whole second story. We've seen it a few examples. That was an attempt to relate to it.
I think to your comment, Farrell, that the original structure, I think this carriage house would not fit with the original. Original's been modified, it's been raised, it has that entire second half, it's got that cross dormer on the one side. I think some of the historical context of that smaller cottage has disappeared over the years in a way that I don't think we would approve today. But I think that's a piece of saving grace. Speaker's proposal.
And I might add, if we have to reduce the length of it with the final architectural review, that doesn't change the variances really. The problem is trying to go bigger after variance has been granted.
Constitutes a kitchen these days. Planned as a refrigerator and sink, but no cooktop.
No cooking.
So that's a major difference.
According to zoning, that's the current standard. It's a little confusing, but
More like a wet bar.
that's correct. That's exactly it. Yeah. They're exercise fanatics. They really, since COVID, they realized they need to have a facility. They both work. One works out of the house, one travels a lot, so they both work pretty heavy schedules.
Remember correctly, typically in the past, we would say a shower, a bathroom, or a kitchen sink. The idea being you can always plug
We can
in.
eliminate sink if that's an issue with this commission. I thought it'd be more of an issue with the city council, but.
Typically, our reasoning behind it in the past, if I remember correctly, if I'm wrong, was that to put in a cooktop or something, you could do that without really having to go extra wiring and everything else, whereas putting a sink in would require plumbing code inspections and whatnot.
There's already a sink in the bathroom.
Right. So it could be
Yeah.
converting.
Zoning's approaching it by allowing a sink at this point. I mean, the code's really poorly written for today's standards, as we all know. But they have no reason, the door to access upstairs in the back in their yard, they have no reason to try to rent it in any way.
And part of our previous approach was the proliferation of, prior to licensing and everything, was unregistered rental
Oh,
units and
Yes.
dwelling units that would typically trigger additional parking requirements and all that stuff. So that was the effort we had, was to prevent a secondary dwelling on the space,
Oh, yeah.
or a tertiary dwelling in some instances.
As the values of these houses go up and up, there's less interest in the owners renting them out. In fact, some of the actual houses are more of an Airbnb, have caused problems
And
than these kind of buildings.
from our perspective, again, with current code and the state it is, R2F would allow to on, but then it triggers parking requirements. So that's kind of the cart before the horse issue. It's not so much preventing two occupancies, it's providing two occupancies that would meet the code requirements and everything else.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to do.
Bill, I'm sorry to spring my concerns on you like this. You might remember I was not a member of the commission during the July meeting when this was up for conceptual review because city council.
I forgot about that.
City council had not reappointed me.
Yeah.
Two of us.
Yeah, we had two on Brewery the same way.
Yeah. I did not review this.
I did not remember.
To address Commissioner Farrell's concerns, I have the same ones about carriage houses, et cetera, in inappropriate locations and all its historicism, et cetera, that goes with it. I think, Jeff, in this case, it matches the massing that's already there, regardless of what the house is up front. This relates to the alley more, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm willing to look at the zone, from my personal view, if you're willing to commit that the massing and proportions of this building mass will not change.
Or it could be reduced if the
Or
commission
reduced,
so
yeah.
desires. Yeah,
Then I would look at the zone.
okay. Well, we're willing to commit to the massing and elevations that we've provided.
I'm not asking for elevations, I'm just saying.
I know, but I'm just saying we are willing to commit to that.
I wouldn't say that, because you may come and we may not like the elevations as they
You
are.
may not, but
So
I'm,
I wouldn't say that.
okay.
I would not. You're gonna make it more difficult next time.
Massing.
Massing, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the volume that you're presenting here doesn't change with respect.
Are we asking for removal of the sink so that somebody in the future can't just plug in a cooktop and?
I think that's the question for the commission. That's been our
I
stance in
agree.
the past.
I'd forgotten that was even on there. I'm gonna wipe it out for general purposes anyway, so.
So are you willing?
I'll be
amend
willing
your
to
application?
alter my application to remove the refrigerator and the sink, both.
Other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion? Variances.
Mr. Chair, on item 05, GV 2110-023-862 Mohawk Street, I move to approve as amended with the removal of the refrigerator and the sink, ratify, actually approve, recommend the zoning variance is requested with the removal of the refrigerator and the sink from the interior of the building and the commitment that the volume of the, what's presented in these drawings will not change.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Thank you. I said it for the checks.
Thank you very much. Move on to item 6, GV-21-10-030-253 Lansing Street. If you both please raise your right hands. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Sarah Ahern.
John McKay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Order.
Item GV 2110-30-253 Lansing Street. Proposed work description is to construct a new two-story coach house structure 20 feet to the rear of existing residence. Proposed carriage house will be 600 square feet and offset from the existing rear alley in line with the face of the adjacent structure. First floor will comprise of a 2-car garage and storage space. Second floor will comprise a bed and sitting room apartment. Exterior finish will be board and batten siding for the second floor and 1x6 scallop shiplap siding on the first floor. Roofing shingles will be Owens Corning standard 3-tab and estate gray. Windows will be Pella Impervia fiberglass composite exterior and interior. Painted aluminum attic vents, painted fiberglass garage doors, and 2x10 cedar trellis with 6x6 columns stained. Staff analysis, the application was seen as a conceptual at the past October 6, 2021 GVC hearing. The commissioners appreciate turning the gable end to the alley side of the property. They believe the roof line is still too tall for the proposed carriage house in conjunction to the 1.5-story existing cottage. Commissioners state that they were concerned with the compliance of the overall charter of the Historic Commission. Some commissioners stated they were in support of the current design, as others stated they were not. Commissioners note that this is an example that incremental changes are not distracting from the historic integrity of the neighborhood, that the other carriage houses that have been approved have already done that, and that this proposed carriage house might be water over the dam. They also stated that neighborhood will evolve and to make sure that the new construction follow within guidelines, that massing would be a problem if massing didn't already exist in the alley. Staff recommends that the commission offers feedback on the design and recommends to continue the application based off of CC 311612, Standards of New Construction, letter D, E, M, and German Village Guidelines, page 113. New buildings, garages, and outbuildings, number 1, 2, 4, 5, and 13.
Applicant, anything else to add?
I'd like to address the issue of two-story constant. When we first came to you, I think initially in September, maybe. At that time, the commission recommended that this building was too high. We reduced the second story to a half story in essence, because the bearing walls and the trusses at each side and that ended about 5'3". So the idea that it's a full two-story is not quite accurate.
What's the height of the primary structure?
It's 2 feet taller than this.
Questions, comments from the commission?
In regards to the architectural integrity of the alley, probably, I don't mean to be facetious when I say this, but I think we actually address it better than the contemporary two-story carriage house that's about 30 feet to the west.
Speaking for myself, I mean, and I would look at it a couple times, but looking at the original application, the massing has been reduced quite a bit. It's smaller than the primary, smaller than the two largest, a couple farther away. Materials, detailings are in line. I don't personally have a problem with it.
Just want to point out that the building, two lots down to the east is actually a residence, has been a residence for decades.
Understand?
My comments is the property that you own is not of the architectural heritage of had a carriage house. Addition of a carriage house in 2021-22 is fictional historicism and not appropriate. Degrading the historic character of the alley and the property enhance the overall historic district. Thank you.
Once again, it's just, it has two houses down from each of the contemporary one.
And I said the same thing about that one.
I don't doubt it, but it's been built.
Don't think that is a justification for another one.
I'm not being argumentative, but
No, I understand.
I am saying that comparing this one to the contemporary one,
No.
that's on this,
Absolutely not.
I was gonna say.
Architecturally, is it more appropriate? Yes, I agree.
Okay.
I totally was vehemently against the 1 2 doors
I
down.
can understand.
Yeah.
And I should say, I don't even believe that I'm bound by my previous mistakes
I didn't
to
suggest
repeat
you.
them. So I don't feel bound to repeat the mistakes of the commission has made in the past if I believe they were mistakes. I'm wondering, and I'll really pose this for the rest of the commission, are there any houses in German Village too small to have a carriage house? Because it looks like we're headed in the direction that no matter the size of the primary structure, as long as it's a little bit smaller than the primary structure, it's okay to have a carriage house. So that seems to be the direction we're heading with the proliferation of carriage houses.
Well, it's also that people who have smaller houses want additional space. and they know we're not gonna let them put an addition on their historic house. So it's letting them have the third bedroom or whatever over the garage, the acceptable alternative. Or do we just tell people, sorry, if you want a 3-bedroom house, you have to move out?
Well, that it's the alternative that's being proposed. I'm not sure it's an acceptable alternative. But I agree, I believe that's what's transpiring.
When is enough enough?
I guess this question is, we have an example in the village of having lots split to small sizes historically, having 2 separate residences. Would having a second residence here be more problematic than having a carriage house here?
It's exactly what my head is. It's why I'm kind of okay with it, is many of these lots are split. Many of these alleys have residences of similar scale, right? And so in the period, somebody might have split this lot, sold it off to somebody else would have built a house in the exact same spot. Now, house is not a carriage house, so they look a little bit like scale, massing, yeah, they're similar. That's how I get where I'm at.
Well, in that day, they would have built a house, but they wouldn't have been required to provide parking for it. Now you're required to provide parking for it, so basically you're putting a house on top of a garage, which is a carriage house. And that does not go with the historic character of Durban Village. So I can't get there.
I get there because that's the realities of today.
And that is not the realities of today in Durban Village. Sorry.
And I think the character of the village is a mixture of deep lots and shallow lots. And this trend is they're all essentially eliminating the deep lots. And then from a character standpoint, yeah, architectural perspective. Although garages do it to a large extent also.
And I'm not advocating for carriage houses everywhere. I'm just trying to wrap my head around where is it appropriate, where is it not appropriate. If we value the original small 2-room cottages, do we value keeping them smaller structures intact without having giant additions to them over a carriage house that is not a mega carriage house, but more of its scale with the streetscape? That's my question to.
Streetscape or always. And adding addition to a small cottage that reflects the guidelines and everything else, it's absolutely okay. As long as you can still see the original structure. And it doesn't exceed the zoning requirements. That is.
Next question for the applicant. Lot coverage wise, if this was built, what are you looking at lot coverage wise?
Well, it's still under the second quadrant. I mean, I'd like, regarding that, I'd like to go back to the issue you said it's a slightly smaller structure than what's there right now. I think, with due respect, that's a slight exaggeration. It's substantially smaller than what's there right now. I mean, maybe 12.5, how many square feet? 1,200?
Bigger, I was.
I think it's probably 1,600 square foot, story and a half house, right? We're talking about 600 square feet. I think with regard to the vernacular of the whole thing, we've tried to address this story and a half issue. And I think we've been successful in doing that. Once again, we're back to personal opinion about whether or not it's in line with what's there or not there, and whether or not it's in line with the philosophy of German Village. And I don't disagree with anything you've said. But in the long run, I tend to think that we are trying to put the garage. I watched the gentleman who was here before, who's put building a 2-story house in the garage. Previous application. And that shows a whole lot of difference between what he's doing and what we're doing in terms of concept. This is larger than what we're trying to do.
The massing in the alley with the previous one was quite different than the massing.
Well, I have to respect your opinion, but you're on the commission. I'm here begging. So I think there is a comparison. A lot of, to be quite honest, there are a lot of properties in German Village that were not addressed their original use. Now, schools that have been converted to residences. Massive. But there is
Changing
one.
use is a different thing than putting a garage, carriage house on the back. A house on Lansing.
Okay. And there's really no response to them.
How maybe, how do the other commissioners feel? So I think it's pretty obvious how the three of us feel.
I have less trouble with this submission than I have other ones in the past. I do question the concept of how far back is this set from the property line on the alley. And we've had problems in the past of the garage is built, the alley is too tight to turn.
We're actually,
Come back
very
and
much,
put two-
we're actually in line with every other big garage that's on the,
How wide is the alley, do you know?
oh gosh, I'm guessing 16 feet maybe.
It's typically, what we've been finding is, again, thinking long-term here,
Yeah.
the next owner, the next applicant. Garages are built. We like the two-door garage, which is more historically appropriate. They're built up to the property line pretty much. You have a 15, 16-foot wide alley. You don't have a 20-foot turning radius. And then all of a sudden, we come back with applications that we need to change our garage and get a single double door that's not a turning radius. So decisions made today have an effect long-term. So that's another piece that's an application. I would have mentioned it if we had the business meeting to look through it, to see the lot, the plan on the lot and the dimensions and the alleyscape and the alley depth and everything else. We don't have that to look at. But from a architectural perspective, I'm not a fan of the horizontal vertical split between the two. I think it accentuates the height more than what is there. Not a big fan of the board and batten across the entire height of the garage. I think we've seen that in other places that just didn't seem to turn out right. But I think the massing and scale I'm okay with.
We're prepared to give up the board and batten siding I mean, in terms of pure architectural style, if that's the objection, we have no problem with going the same horizontal siding that we have on the house and on the lower level of this.
I don't have an objection with the massing of this, given the rest of the buildings that are on the alley. I feel like, when I look at the entirety of the heights of the other buildings, I don't have an issue with it.
Well, I can see where Ned's going is that we are losing the sort of purity of our smaller houses. They're not going to be small cottages anymore. Everything will be a cottage with a carriage house in the back or cottage with an addition. But yeah, I guess you are the last gap on the side of the alley. And the design, as far as I can see, fits right in with the gap. Yeah, architecturally, I don't have a problem with it, but yeah, I can see that eventually there will be no more small cottages available for sale in German Village.
So we 3-3, is that what I had, or we 4?
I think massing we're 4-2. And you have an issue with the materials, but it sounds like the applicant is willing to modify that. I don't know if we would be,
I don't think I could vote.
we want to see it, right?
Yeah, I couldn't vote on a hypothetical elevation.
Of that nature.
Well, we'll be happy to change the elevations and bring them back to you.
I think that when it comes back to us, it would be the elevations, we need dimensions off the lot lines, need to get the dimension of the alley. Looks like there's something off the back of the garage, which is not shown on the site plan. There's some pieces that are missing, so we can see the contextually, everything that needs to be there.
Okay. Once again, just so that I understand, we are in line, and I believe me, I'm not referring to this new contemporary thing, but we are in line with the face of those garages, that whatever they are, that are currently on the alley.
I think it would be beneficial for you to know though, that if you could make sure you have 20 feet,
Sure,
it's gonna be better for using.
we can do that.
So
Absolutely.
it's not just,
We
it's
we
more
can-
of that.
We can do that, absolutely.
Especially with the two doors, because it's hard to
So,
make that turn. So just making sure that it's set back enough.
we can do that.
Until you've driven into a garage like this with only 20 feet, you don't have a full appreciation.
If you look at the,
Well, I'm from Britain, there's never 20 feet.
if you look at the two garages just left and right of this property, you'll see that both have a single extra wide door that's designed to look like two. We try to get away from those. So the placement is a design decision, which is going to end up driving repercussions down the road.
Sure,
Let's not make the wrong design decision up front, so we don't have that down.
we can move it back. How do you want us to do this? You want us to change it, resubmit it for review prior to the meeting?
I think that is the path forward. I don't think we can, I can't vote based upon the architecture, and we have votes against it in general. I don't think you have the majority of votes that we could actually
Okay,
pass this week.
Do you want to move to continue to next?
I think that's a sensible thing to do.
Okay. Item 06 GB 21-10-30, 253 East Lansing Street, I move to continue.
Thank you.
Second.
Any questions on the motion?
Go, get it.
Yeah, we got a motion, we got a second. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Against? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got ahead of myself.
Speedy over there.
Speak for yourself.
Number 6, we'll go ahead to item number 7. Another completed application, GB-21-10-032, 703 South Fifth Street.
They're unable to attend this evening and wish to continue for December agenda.
Okay. Is there a motion to continue?
Yeah, on item 07 GB 21-10-032, 703 South Fifth Street, I move to continue.
Second.
Dealer's choice. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Against? Ayes have it. Move on to new applications. Agenda item number 8, GB-21-11-022, 571 South Third Street. Al? And if you please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Please state your name for the record.
Tom Schmitz.
Thank you very much.
Item number GB 211122, 571 South Third Street. Proposed work description is to add an awning over front entry door on South Third Street. Awnings will be black sunbrella fabric, black frame with open-ended sides with a straight rigid valance across the front. Address number will be gold across the front of the valance installed over the front door. Staff notes that other commercial buildings on Third Street have black open-sided awnings above entryway. Staff notes that the awning falls within the Durham Village guidelines for material, size, and design. Staff recommends approval of any and all clarifications to be submitted to HBO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of certificate on the conditions that the awning will be installed via mortar joints based on the Durham Village guidelines, page 100, page 101, 2, and 3.
Anything else to add?
No, not at the moment. I think there was a question because it wasn't clarified, on the right-hand side, how it was actually going to be attaching. There were actually the mortar joints, of course, on the left side. On the right side up at the top, that is not in that picture that you see right there. There's actually a hole up above at the right spot, quite honestly, where an eye bolt used to be at some point. I think historically there's a photo that we have that shows there an awning or a valance that used to be there way back when. So the way it's going to come down, it'll come down from the eye bolt area there at the top where you can kind of see the hole there. It's going to come down to the same length as the frame that's on the left side, but because there is nothing there to actually attach to at the lower side, they're actually going to bring the frame into the wood, and they're going to attach an anchor to the wood right at the very edge to secure the bottom on the right side.
Come into the transom frame.
Correct.
Other, pull up Google Street View to get a better picture of what's all there. So the only question I would have is, looks like from the submitted picture on page 3 of the application, the left side, the bar comes down to the, call it the first block joint below the bump out block, for lack of better architectural terms. If I trace that line across to the right side, that's right, looks like it's right to the, again, proper architectural terms, the curly Q on top of the light fixture. How is that going to engage with the light fixture? Is it going to be inside, outside?
Well, I know that they are intending to bring it, to avoid obviously that gas lamp fixture as much as possible, but still to bring it down low enough. And quite honestly, the gentleman who actually worked with the design here was out of town, so I was doing some clarification over the phone. But as far as I could tell, they were going to bring that down as far as possible, and possibly even to the point of the left-hand side, so that obviously it would match as much as possible. But it will have to be asymmetrical due to the fact that there's no mortar joints down below.
I think asymmetrical is okay in our book to facilitate more historic features. Part of the durability quirks, it's fine. And the other question I would have is, I know there's been questions in the past with having a gas lantern, the heat coming off of that. Yeah. Is that going to be a problem with?
That's why he produced it with an open edge. I guess I'm trusting the designer at Capital City Awning to have, because he actually took that into consideration very carefully whenever they came up with the design. So I believe by his recommendation that we are going to be okay and not have a fire hazard there.
Any other questions or comments?
Get him to sign something for you that says that.
Well,
I think it's sir.
I'm particular enough that if they start to bring it in there and it looks like it's going to be a problem, I'll be the one to say it's not going to work.
Just don't burn our buildings down.
Exactly.
No comments or questions? Is there a motion?
Approve, item 8, GB 21-11-22-022-571 3rd Street with staff recommendation.
Second.
Question on the motion? Those in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Ayes have it, motion passes. Next item, let the record show the applicant is already on the record. This is going to be agenda item 9, GB-21-11-023-571 South 3rd Street. Morgan?
Proposed work description for this address as well is to install short landscape fence around base of tree in the tree lawn. This will be an iron planter fence with 4 to 6 inch planter base and connected fence not to exceed 14 inches in height. Fence will have a black powder coated finish. Staff analysis view the existing young dead non-contributing cherry tree and the public row has recently been approved to be replaced with magnolia tree. Staff is concerned with the close proximity of the flower bed to the curb, since most parking in German Village is on street parking. If a metal fence were to be installed, it might cause some issues for parking. Staff recommends not installing iron fence and to leave or replant the existing shrubs. Based off German Village guidelines, accessibility, page 129, number 8.
Anything else to add?
Don't think so at the moment. We're feeling this one out. I know that obviously the animals have taken care of the boxwoods that you see there that exist. So that's why all that's coming out. And so in theory, the idea behind the fence and the small border at the bottom of the fence was to create a small planter area that quite honestly would make things look a lot nicer, help deter pets from coming in and getting into the plantings that would be there after the fact.
Questions, comments from the commission?
Typically, when you install a landscape fence like that, from the face of curb, you want it to be back at 18 inches. And that will allow for someone to get out of a car or the door swing. That's typically a standard that's used. It's hard to tell from here, you know, with the curb, if there's 12 inches behind the curb to where that would be because you can't count the brick, they're herringbone and.
We were, working to actually, use the existing space that was there around the tree. And I know that there have been plantings there in the past, so I guess I felt like, well, I guess if you opened your door into a plant, it doesn't necessarily damage your car door, whereas obviously a fence would be a little more, but in theory, that was, I guess, not trying to expand the space, but use the existing space.
I will make a note in the applicant's favor. If you look at the street view, the no parking sign is right in front of the left side of the door.
Right,
So from the door to the corner is no parking, and
right.
there's a crosswalk. there. If anything, that's one tick in the applicant's favor.
Because it's so close to the intersection.
Mhm.
And you can see in the photo, page 2, where the city has painted those parking stripes.
So anybody parking there would be illegally parked in any event.
Park illegally, your door can get smashed.
Well, it's not just smashing the door, it's that you can't get out, but who cares about their door? You can't get out.
And I'll make a devil's advocate flip comment for the applicant is, if you're going to be taking out the tree and replacing it and taking out the bushes, there's really no need to build up off grade for the planter, because you'd be able to dig down as you replace the tree to
As a-
keep the planting at grade.
Sorry, I didn't. So as I understand it, whenever they went to actually even plant the boxwoods, there is some type of base structure that is really down. So when they actually installed those boxwoods, they actually hit whatever the structure was below. So I guess the idea though of bringing it up is honestly, if in the end, we actually have plantings in there as well as a little bit of mulch, it keeps things a little more tidy. So I don't, like you see there's actually mulch that's leaked out onto the sidewalk. So, that was the other part, was just to kind of keep things a little bit more contained.
My only comment would be a masonry curb would be more sustainable. And then put the fence behind it.
You could probably do that, Ned, if you expand the opening. Part of the, once you lay the masonry and the curb all the way around in the planting, you're constructing the zone for the tree.
Like how much?
No, you're restricting it a foot each direction,
I was thinking.
unless you did you could do a 4-inch curb, I assume.
I would also think that masonry curbing would go shallower into the grade than metal. You have to drive that down pretty far,
I'm just
half to
thinking,
2/3 of the
the
ground.
masonry that's sitting there at the water and everything is just, it's a maintenance issue.
Mhm.
And that's his problem.
Yeah.
If questions from the commission is anybody against as submitted?
I don't think it significantly deviates from anything else we've done.
I agree. If that's what we've got a majority, would you like us to vote on it as is?
That'd be great.
For a motion.
I'm looking for a motion.
I move to approve GB 21-11-023-571 South Third Street, with staff recommendations.
Second.
Any question on the motion? Well, I will note for staff that the location of this and having no parking there is definitely mitigating circumstance.
Yes, it does. I completely missed that sign, so thank you for pointing that out.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Against? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, moving on to item number 11. Nope, yep. Nope, 10, here we go. Item number 10, GB-21-11-024, 739 South Third Street. Doors down. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. I do. Please state your name for the record. BJ Lieberman. Thank you very much. You will.
Proposed work description for item GD 211124, 739 South Third Street. is to reinstall black vestibule that had previously been installed at the front entrance. Vestibule will measure 56 inches wide and 48 inches in depth. With vestibule installed, sidewalk will have 9 feet 88 clearance. Vestibule is made of black umbrella fabric, fire rated, fire retardant. For staff analysis, the temporary vestibule was originally installed prior to April 2021. It was installed as a windbreak to keep cold air from rushing in during the winter. The vestibule was approved to be removed in April to allow the present restaurant to have a temporary patio space on 3rd Street. Taken from April 2021 minutes, commissioners have stated that the vestibules have not been approved in the past and that the applicant would need to apply for any future vestibules or awnings. New awnings typically should be an open-ended in design and style. Staff does not recommend installing a vestibule as stated in the Durban Village guidelines based off of entryways and porch closures, page 118.
Happy, anything else to add?
No.
Make sure to clarify for the commission that the previous vestibule was not approved and was installed. That was a conversation point when we looked at the patio. Questions, comments from the commission?
Just to make sure I understand, the fence was designed to be removable at some point too, right?
Correct, it's already removed.
It's been, so the fence has been removed.
We agreed October 6th would be the date of removal. I moved it on that date.
Trying to jog my memory.
Sure, it was a while ago.
Yeah. So it would be going back to what it looked like before, only with all the improvements
Correct.
to the facade. Okay.
I don't look this is much different than a tent over a patio for a restaurant. It's winter protection, that's exactly what it is, it comes down at a certain time in the spring. Just like a tent,
Yeah, I think if we give it a
cutoff point,
removed by
yeah.
April 1st.
I mean, I get the need. You know, a lot of the old houses, they had temporary vestibules they put up on the porches the end of the winter.
Will this be extending into the public way, I'm assuming?
Yes, exactly how it looks in that photo. However, there is, I don't know remember the exact dimensions. I think there's like 12 feet without it. The fence from the patio went out
Right.
a certain amount. This goes substantially less than the
Will it
fence.
require a permit from the city to extend into the public way?
I spoke to the city this morning. They said with our permit that we already have for the patio, that this just applies the same. We've already got that space rented for the rest of the year, so, yeah.
Just review that.
Yeah, we would renew it. I believe it's next April, if I'm not mistaken, which I'll probably be back in front of you again, asking to redo the patio at that point anyway, so.
It's a cycle.
Yeah.
I think it's totally the spirit of what we advised the applicant to do the first time.
We do appreciate you coming in this round for this. Questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, item GB 21 11 024 for 739 South 3rd Street. Move to approve the application as submitted.
Second.
Joyce, any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
The facade work looks great, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Facade work looks great.
Oh, thank you, appreciate it. We're on item 11, GB-21-11-025, 54 East Whittier. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Please state your name for the record.
Proposed work description for item number GB 21-11-025 is the removal of original beadboard hinged garage door prior to COA. Original garage doors were in poor condition. Applicant proposes to leave the garage doors off of the garage and keep it open. Department of the Building and Zoning Services is deemed building unsafe and are requesting resolution within that 30 days. Applicant proposes to repair the east wall to restore it to safe condition, including replacement of rotted fascia and soffit boards like for like on north elevation of garage and main building and painted. Work has been undertaken prior to review and approval. Staff analysis based off the submitted photos, garage doors were seen to be in poor condition. The existing condition of the wall has potentially been exacerbated from the removing and replacing of the framing for the original garage doors. Staff recommends approval with any and all clarifications to be submitted to HBO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of certificate based off of CC 31-1611, standards of alteration number 6 and number 3.
Anything else to add? Questions, comments from the commission? do have one question. Assuming structural engineer has been consulted or will be consulted about this effort,
They have, yes.
have they said anything about the span of that opening? Because typically that would not have been two large open bays in the past. I'm wondering if structurally, if that single post in the center's having any effect on the sagging and everything else.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna need more support. Yes.
And then do you have a method plan for rebuilding that wall there?
The structural engineer, suggested we take it down and start from the foundation up.
You're gonna take it down and rebuild it using the same material that you're taking it down. There will be any other work with this? So we taken down, put it back up. Looks like the window opening is empty potentially. Probably reusing an existing door. It's a historic door.
Yes.
Are you putting any windows back in that opening or leaving it open since it's more of a carport at that point?
It'll probably be restored to the same length. Yeah, the windows and doors. Be changing any of.
That begs the question, if you could, addressing the one wall by taking it down and putting it back up, assuming they'd be putting in a footer on that side, is there any structural problems with the back wall or the other side wall?
No.
Questions, comments from the commissioners?
Well, I guess if they take the one wall down to below grade and they discover there's no footer on the corner wall, would you just keep going?
It would pose a problem, yes. We want the building to be safe.
It's unraveling the corners.
And you have no desire to put doors back on it?
Item GB 21-11-025, 54 East Whittier Street. I move to approve as submitted.
Second, but I'm curious what's on over there. We need to wait.
Technical problems.
That, all technical problem.
While the technical problem being worked out, I do have a question for the applicant. If you were to put more posts back in the opening space, my request would be that they would be placed equidistant, as if it were garage openings, as opposed to two over here and then one giant opening on the other side. We kind of bring it back towards a more historic, multi-car, individual opening garage style.
Would be a change in design.
Do it.
It would be a change in design.
We're just having spell check, so.
Spell check?
Well, it was just, so I'm not a college professor, I can't help you say.
That is fine. I appreciate the feedback on it.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Let's have it, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 12, GV-21-11-026, 707 South 6th Street. Looking here for South 6th Street, 707. Stack. Move ahead to item 13, GV-21-11-027, 566 South 4th Street. Looking for 566 South 4th Street. Back in the stack, keep on going down. GV-21-11-028, 792 South 3rd. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Yes, I do. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Curtis Thomas.
Thomas? Morgan?
Proposed work description for item number GV 2111-028 is to install a new mailbox, remove current copper mailbox that measures 11 inches wide by 2.5 inches deep and 14 inches length, replace with new mailbox that measures 14 inches wide by 4.5 inches deep and 14 inches in length. New mailbox will be black and red mail and read mail and newspaper in German. No additional holes will be needed to be drilled. We'll use existing ones from previous mailbox. Staff summary: existing mailbox never received a COA for installation. Staff does not recommend the size of mailbox, but something comparable to what is already existing. Conditions have been installed to be installed via mortar joist without damaging surrounding brick. This is based off of Durban Village guidelines, site lighting, street furniture, pools, fountains, and gazebos, page 139, number 5.
Anything else to add by the applicant?
No.
Questions, comments from the commission?
Exterior, I just came, I had never went there.
Mailbox.
So is this a mailbox from Germany or?
Yes, it was a gift from David's sister.
Ah,
She had it imported for.
And they are ubiquitous in Germany.
Don't think it. If it's worse or better than what's there currently, but
The one that's together, it looks like it came from Pottery Barn.
Nothing. Also have mailboxes. I don't think it's anything ordinary.
I think it looks fine.
Acceptable. Doesn't detract.
Item GV 2111-028, 792 South Third Street, I move to approve as submitted.
Second.
Joyce, any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Against? Abstains? Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
All right, moving ahead to item 15, GV-21-11-029, 780 South Lizelle. 780 South Lizelle. You get settled, you please raise your right hand.
Yep.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and the truth.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Nathan Sampson.
Order.
Proposed work description. Proposed work description is to replace non-historic window on the second floor south elevation. The opening is currently a pane of glass with trim. The window opening is 4.5 inches from south property line within the setback outline in the building code, requiring no openings and a 1-hour fire rating. In the previously approved application, applicant outlined that they are keeping all the existing window openings on the northwest and south elevations. Proposed window replacement will be a one-light casement window manufactured by FireTech and has a 1-hour fire rated assembly. That has actually been changed, and hopefully Nathan can elaborate on that further. It was just recently before the meeting started to retain the overall rating of the wall assembly by building code. This window will be operable and will provide egress from the existing bedroom. Revisions for the previously approved overhead glass door proposes to relocate the approved 8-foot by 12-foot overhead glass door from east elevation of the addition to the north elevation under the covered porch. Door unit will be reduced to 8 feet by 8 feet. In place of previously approved glass door location, applicant is proposing 3 new casement windows, which are 3 feet 4 inches wide by 5 feet 4 inches tall. Revisions to the previously approved rear yard sliding doors and transom. Based on structural issues, applicant proposed to reduce the sliding door and fixed window height from 10 feet to 8 feet. Increase the approved transoms from 12 inches tall to 24 inches tall. Revised height of fixed glass stairwell window to align with revised sliding doors and transom height. Revisions to the previously approved pocket door on the second floor. Replace the approved 3-part pocket door with a 2-part pocket door. Staff analysis project was previously issued as COA on May 4th, 2021. Staff recommends approval with any and all clarifications to be submitted to HPO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of a certificate based off of 31-16-11 standards for alteration, number 9, 10, and 12.
Anything else to add?
Yeah, a couple of clarifications, I guess. I'll start with the less complicated ones and move backwards. When we were here before, we had presented the design and window layout for the structure that was approved a number of months ago. After sort of consulting with the structural engineer and talking with staff or with commissioners on site, we needed to adjust how we approached the preservation of the structure, at least the walls that are street facing. And in that, we came up with some solutions, but they caused some issues structurally. To solve them the way that we felt we needed to, in line with the commission's direction, which just caused us to have to adjust a few, like the back facade, let's say, which is the east side, lowering those doors and transoms from where they were previously. I think there's a before and after sheet elevation on this. And then also with discussions with the neighbor to the south and along with some other structural issues, the window well that we had to the basement underneath the addition had to be relocated. So we moved the overhead door that was proposed for the east side of the elevation to the north side of the elevation, which is under a sort of covered porch area. In place of the overhead door, we did propose 3 new windows for that location. Those were the modifications, I think, that we're coming here today to talk about, that were just resultant of trying to get an efficient method for approaching the structure and actually holding up the structure that's there while we do our work in a safe way. The last item is the south second floor window. That was and is a bedroom, and through conversations with the building department, through conversations with just our team, that window currently is just a fixed single pane of glass. Not necessarily a historical window. We are trying to modify that to a window that could be used for egress, as there's no other exits or means of egress from that room. Trying to bring it up to code. Today, as I went through all my checks, I called the window manufacturer that we had proposed here for a casement window. And they made a clarification that the window assembly, although the glass can be 1 hour rated, the assembly could only go up to 45 minutes. And in talking with the building department, we needed a window assembly and glass that needed to go up to 1 hour because it's within 3 feet of the property line. They don't make a casement window that does that. They do make a window assembly that meets that criteria, but it is a single hung window. That window frame and assembly is 1 hour rated with clear 1 hour rated ceramic glass. What I'm trying to do is sort of meet the criteria of the building code for that egress location. Also trying to get the window as close to that existing size as possible, even though it's not street facing. It is south facing. The lot directly to the south is vacant at the time. It's a through lot. And we've been talking with the neighbors just about access and things like that. So not necessarily street facing, but trying to work out a solution that satisfies the commission. With this, I think that there are options with that single hung window that we can, achieve a look that may be, approved by the commission. There is a Muttons detailing that can be apply to that, whether it's a 2/2 style, single hung window. All the windows on this structure don't have sort of an exterior casing. They're all the siding sort of runs straight up to the jamb and then has the window inside, and they're at this point black. So we propose that we run our siding, to over the top of that exterior frame, use the black color that they offer in that window. And right now, it's just a single 1/1 single hung. Yeah, I think the options we have, like I said, is a 2/2. If we felt like muttons were appropriate here. I didn't show any just because currently it's just painted glass with no muttons. That can also be an insulated unit. Actually, I think we have to get the 1 hour rating in this assembly. So and that's probably the location that is semi-viewable from the street. So we want to make sure that we get the commission's comments and can help get a solution that works.
Questions, comments from the commission?
Can you clarify how this one is gonna look compared to the other new ones that you're putting in? I heard the siding, lapping and stuff like that.
Yeah. So basically the detail of the windows that are in the original or the historic structure,
Yeah.
the siding actually comes and laps to the jamb versus having an exterior trim on it. And so our intention is, even though that the frame of that window that we're proposing has a thickness to it, like any window would, that we would lap our siding like an inch or so over that to try and achieve that same exposure, similar exposure to those historical windows, just to reduce its size as well, because for the egress requirements, it does get slightly wider.
Is that true of all the other windows you're putting in too?
Yes, on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just a question, okay, I mean, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, when these windows may need to be replaced, does that mean the siding's gonna have to be peeled back to access that frame and get it out?
That frame, yes, with the lap, it would just be like a nailing flange type of situation.
Okay, I'm moving that, Joe, just asking.
Okay.
Looks like from the jam installation details, looks like you can pull it out from the inside.
Yeah, I think that, there's probably a sash replacement versus a window replacement, just like you would have in windows.
Didn't mean to go down this rabbit hole.
That's okay. But yeah, I think that, we want the commission to understand what the window is, what it will look like, so that we can answer questions like that.
Make sure I understand all the pieces. The changes to the glass garage door, pocket door, that's on the addition, correct?
Yeah.
So that's whatever. My opinion. And then the other, what is the change? I'm trying to follow the change in the elevation where
On the rear of the.
sliding doors are.
Sure. Yeah, so the change, if we look at the before and after on those, we actually, in our
Oh, they've got.
approved elevation, we're taller.
It's come down.
They've come down
Got it.
because there's a structural member that we need to run across that, hold up the roof.
Yep, something to hold that roof.
And so those shrunk down a little bit in comparison to the space we have now below the structure that's needed for that, holding up the roof along that rear wall.
Just out of curiosity, with stuff, gonna change back to the rated window.
Yeah.
That's an empty lot. What if somebody builds something there? Are you getting an easement?
Yeah, a condition of the approval last time was cross-access agreement, which is in the works now with the neighbor. We've met with them.
So so they're gonna build something right up against that.
Yeah, we're 4.5 inches off the property
Right.
there. So a cross-access agreement would set a, access dimension for, painting or fixing that down the road. I think in talking to them, there is an intent to build a garage there, at least while they're still living there. And that would, fall under, review by this commission as well. Their standard setback for that would be.
Sure, but the setback, I guess the setback 3 feet. So
Yeah, so unless they were coming for a variance and then negate that cross-access agreement, it's a weird little
Yeah.
window on the end, and we just want to make sure that that's meets code, if somebody has to crawl in around it.
Sure. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
We'll make a note, if you look at the approved elevations versus the proposed elevations, it's not plotted, but the north face, the windows, the number of lights changed, they're existing, they're staying. The new drawings match the current condition. I think it was just an error on previous drawings.
Correct, yeah. And also the slight overhang on the south side, I think may have not shown up in our previous application. We just want to make sure that's there so everybody's sees it on the same page on the existing structure.
Detail being held on. Any questions or comments?
Make a motion on GV 21-11-029-780 Liddell Street, we will approve as submitted.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Things? I say the motion passes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Moving ahead to item 16. GB, page. GB-21-11-030, 310 Alexander Alley. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Absolutely.
And please state your name for the record.
Dan Kessler.
Morgan?
Proposed work description for item number GB 21-11-030. Remove existing rear 2 and side 1 entry doors of 1990s Carriage House. Doors are not historic and in need of replacement. Door styles will remain the same as well as colors. New exterior wood trim will be replaced. Storm doors will be measured for replacement after door installation. Remove existing non-original alley facing windows. 2. Replace the Marvin alternate clad picture windows to match that were done last year. Colors will remain the same with the new exterior wood trim. Staff analysis: Carriage House was constructed in the 1990s after a lot split from 711 South Grant Avenue. The existing entry doors are not the same as what was noted in the approved 1993 drawings. Staff recommends approval of any and all clarifications to be submitted to HPO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of certificate with conditions that the new chosen door design follow the Durham Village guidelines. Based off Durham Village guidelines amendments, window replacement, page 177, the window is not original or contributing, and entrances and doors, pages 60 through 61.
Anything else to add?
I do not.
Questions, comments from the commission?
Did you find an application about 10 years ago for the replacement of these windows?
Did I what?
Find an application for the replacement of these windows about 10 years ago?
Yes, I did.
Okay, is that in here? Is that?
It is, I believe I added it, but if not, I can find that information for you.
It should be pages 18, 19,
Okay.
Yeah, it's sent in previous material.
good old blueprints.
Those are technically blue lines.
Yeah. Good point.
Also, Carriage House from 1994, which I find interesting based on our.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
dated 94. There was something probably 10 years later than that.
Yes.
I can't remember what the application at that time was. That's,
2010 for the replacement of the windows.
okay.
Is there a concern you had that?
No, I just remember, we had a couple of commissioners against this at the time, and I couldn't remember why, because I wasn't against it. And I just want to go back and revisit it, that's all. Okay, that's,
Totally fine.
thank you, yeah.
I'm just glad it's there.
Yeah, I just to make sure I remember correctly too. Getting harder and harder.
I will forward a motion for GB 21-11-03, 310 Alexander Alley, and with staff comment.
Second?
Any questions on motion? All those in favor? Aye. Against? Abstained? Let's have a motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Before we jump into the conceptuals, we'll go grab the go backs. First item was item 4, GB-21-09-028, 180 Thurman. 80 Thurman. Next go back was 707 South 6th. 556 South 4th. Move on to the conceptuals. So the first conceptual application is item 17, GB-21-11-031-245 Jackson Street. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name for the record.
Brad Bushman.
Proposed work for GB 21-11-031 is to install a small 30-inch by 50-inch window box for applicant's cat. It will easily be removed. It will be installed on a window in the rear of the property above the basement door. For staff analysis, staff would like to know what the size of the existing window is in comparison to the proposed small 30 inches by 50 inches window box, as well as how the box will be installed. Applicant responded and stated the box will be attached to the window. The wood window frame rather than bricks. Existing window measurements are 28.5 inches wide by 60 inches tall. Staff recommends the commission offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicants to further refine the proposal for review at future GBC meeting. No action is required.
Anything else to add?
No, our cats just love that window and we thought it might be nice for them to have some more space back there, and it's at the rear of the house. Nobody can see it. The whole yard is enclosed by a fence. So,
Did you put them closer to the bird feeder?
yeah.
And are your cats willing to make a commitment not to let the other cats in German Village know about the availability of these?
I think so.
Any commission feedback about the size compared to the window or anything like that?
As long as it's attached to the wood framing.
Right. Yeah, it looks like there's a storm window on the inside of the casing, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna attach it to that exterior piece outside the storm window.
Yeah.
Got it.
I would assume that the wrought iron on the third picture is coming down to make way for.
Yeah, will have to be removed.
I think that's a good.
I think the wrought iron should go in
Yeah.
the first place, so I'm happy.
Anyway.
Hey, Morgan, can we convert this to a approval?
I believe so. I'm still new to this, so I'm not quite sure, but.
I'd like to make a motion on this conceptual
Okay.
of, number 17, GB 21-11-031, under the circumstance of what's being,
Before we do, would you like us to make this an actual approval as opposed?
Yeah,
To...
be
and then you have to.
great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Due to the circumstances of lack of complexity on this and staff approval of any additional issues and attachments, so I move to make this an approval instead of conceptual.
Thank you.
All right, so we have motion, we've got a second to make it an approval. Any questions on the motion to make this an approval? Hearing no objections, motion passes. Is there a?
Yeah, I'd like to move on item 17, GB 21-11-031-240. No, 16, 17, that's right, okay. 245 Jackson Street to move it, to approve it.
Second.
Any questions on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you. Our cats will be so happy.
What's the cat's name?
We have, they're Bengal cats. One is named Lumi. She's a snow Bengal. Lumi means snow in Finnish. And the other is Miri, and she has bright green eyes, and Miri means sea in Finnish. So,
Tell them we said meow. All right, we'll move ahead to item number 18, GB-21-11-032, 240 East Casa. You have dad jokes. Oh,
I started it.
please raise your right hands. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Chuck Works.
Kyle Schmidt.
Thank you very much. Ordinance?
Proposed work description for item number GB 2111-032 is proposed installation of new exterior walk-in freezer cooler unit and a new dumpster and enclosure, installation of walk-in unit and dumpster screening and fencing to match existing, removal of interior walk-in freezer and cooler, modification of existing entrance and walkway to meet ADA requirements, renovation of restrooms to meet ADA requirements. Staff analysis, the preliminary plans were sent initially to the GBC email in February of 2021. The applicant indicated the work is being proposed for the need to improve accessibility in the restaurant with adding a dedicated ADA restroom and lower slope barrier free approaches into the restaurant on the addition portion of the building. The applicant stated that he would like to improve the aesthetics to enclose the dumpster space and have better parking pad. In addition, staff would like to inquire if there has been work on the 1980s addition that was done prior to COA based off the image noting plastic sheeting on the addition. The applicant has responded, yes, it did not get a COA, but they are in the process of applying for a COA to staff for that. Staff would recommend the commission should offer design feedback that could be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future GBC meeting. No action is required.
Anything else to add?
No, sir.
Questions, comments from the commission?
So my question is, how do you make this look less cooler?
Let me go what?
Look less as
Like a
an
cooler?
outdoor icebox, yeah, cooler.
Okay. Yeah, well, we had originally been thinking about painting it, but that's not going to fly. So what we'd like to do now is skin it with a finish that matches the current in size, style, and color. Basically a vertical grooved panel.
And it's filling that whole corner, right? Yeah. That makes sense.
So more like actually a T111 type rear paneling. Or vertical boards or.
But a flat roof, not a slope roof like the one area, right? I mean, it's going to be sloped for drainage, but, you know, there'll be equipment up there.
Right. Any questions or more comments on the cooler portions? I do have. So if staff could go to page 27. Zoom in the top left corner where the cooler is. Essentially, the work that's being proposed is that hatched outline with the dumpster enclosure off that top left corner, correct?
Yes.
And the other portion of work is at the current stair portion door on the, go page down. Nope, back to the page, sorry, down on the page. One more page past. Bottom of the drawing. Set entry area. So from a facade standpoint, is there any change to the, assuming by looking at the drawings, no change to the horizontal layout plan view of
No,
the facade?
simply to add a sidewalk element that provided a flush entry into that door.
Is that little right?
This is the piece that's all along the front here.
For reference, if staff will go to page 3 photo. That's what's being adjusted. And from my own knowledge, this portion of the building, you know, when this was all done, roughly.
I can't say.
Okay.
the addition? Sorry, is that the question?
Everything to the left of the masonry brick building.
I believe most of that's like seventies, eighties from what I.
As long as I remember going as
Yeah.
a kid.
Been there a long, long time.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, feedback for the applicant on those two portions? Sounds like there's really no heartburn about what you're
I
proposing.
don't see any big significant change there.
And then staff, Morgan, you mentioned provide some feedback about what's happening across the top there where the plastic is.
Yes, applicant replied saying they replaced like for like, but did not, apply for a COA, but they are in the process from my conversations through email. That will be completely,
Yeah, but it'd be staff approved.
and be staff approved, yeah, the staff.
Like for
approved.
like.
Yeah, like for like.
Is there any feedback you'd like from us?
I've got a question.
Sure.
Along the road property line, there's a 6-foot high fence between you and the residents, right?
It's around the dumpster, the current dumpster enclosure in the back, and then it
Yeah,
drops.
it's on the north side. So my question is, along Sixth Street,
Mhm.
you've got a high fence and then drops down.
Like a 3.5 foot fence.
Yeah, like 3'4", it looks like, where there's nothing right now. But you're coming out with this cooler all the way to that same face?
No. If, are you familiar with Schmitz? There is a shed structure off at the back of the building,
Yeah.
which has a.
Yep.
The new addition is basically going on to the face of that. So there's.
Right,
no-
and that, I mean, I get that, but I'm just saying, is you've got that 6-foot fence halfway through that shed structure, and you drop down to like 3'4". Would it be better just to make a 6-foot fence the whole rest of the length,
Certainly, you could do,
to screen that box off?
we were certainly open to
Pictures
that
on page 8.
suggestion.
And get rid of that drop?
Yeah, that would help, definitely screen it.
Yeah, I think we'll cut off to that.
I'm assuming that's just gonna be parking for the truck or something else back there.
Yeah, because, yeah, the truck, where you see the front of the truck right now, that's where the cooler is going.
Yeah.
So, do you want the fence just to extend where it currently goes to, or would you prefer to go further
Keep going.
down to the curb cut?
Well, at least the line at the end of the box.
Okay.
And that's just my,
Just to help screen it all.
helps screen it off.
Yeah.
You put some more depth.
So is the new addition going to match the roof line or is it a lower slope?
It'll be lower because it's essentially a flat roof. That pitch is there by about a 312 right now. 312, 412 in that range.
Very large restaurant. And that's my criticism.
No,
Taking it back.
that's in response to having to shift around spaces for the ADA compliance that we had to do.
So when you guys come back for full approval application, it'd be good just to have an elevation. That east side elevation and then an elevation looking at the north, just to see how it comes together.
And could I just suggest if you do the fence, replace it with one that's more appropriate to residential construction?
We can look into, is there design features already that you would recommend?
There's just the panel fence with the grid top rail cap and bottom rail cap.
Something less dumpster enclosure, something more residential.
Morgan, you know the one we're talking about, you could probably send them the details.
Yeah. They board that too.
Just make it a little nicer along Sixth.
It'll also screen it better.
Absolutely.
More feedback you'd like from us?
Sure.
You good?
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
I'll move on to item number 19, DV-21-11-033, 672 South Third Street. Here's over there. You want to get up to the table, please raise your right hands. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and the truth.
I do.
Please state your names for the record.
Kevin Lee, Matthew Teisman.
Very much.
Proposed work description for item number GB 2111-033, An addition of approximately 14,030 square feet is proposed to accommodate additional classroom space and social hall for St. Mary's Parish School. Proposed to relocate the rectory building approximately 58 feet to the southwest to accommodate for the new addition, and proposed drive aisle. Propose an active green space in front of the property. Proposed to add brick sidewalks, updated fencing, and new landscaping. Staff analysis and review taken from the following unapproved minutes from the October hearing, now approved. Some commissioners have concerns about the rectory being moved from its original location. The move of the rectory would change the space in front of the rectory. Commissioners want to protect voids between spaces. Moving the rectory would change the neighborhood streetscape, massing, and historical significance of the landscape. Commissioners are concerned about the addition to the rear of the rectory. Commissioner states that the existing structure in the southwest corner should stay intact because it's contributing, though it is not original. Commissioners requested further information on the rear southwest addition to the rectory building before deciding further. Commissioners were concerned about the redesigning and replacing the original contributing 1950s facade. The contemporary design and aesthetic has become historically significant in its own right. Commissioners have stated the rooms can be subdivided behind ribbon walls and can be achieved without changing an existing facade. Some commissioners were concerned with the recreation and playground area to be placed in front of the existing school building. They suggested the yard space in front of the rectory as another option for recreation location. They suggest to keep low and subdued the landscaping for the proposed front recreation area. Large equipment would not be appropriate. And finally, the commissioners are open to the additions that have been proposed for the rear of the school and will need to further be addressed. Staff recommends the commission should offer design feedback that could be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future GBC meeting. No action is required.
Anything else to add?
We're ready.
All right.
Well, I have a few things to add, actually. Sure. So firstly, I would like to thank the commission for their time. Last month, we discussed the project writ large, including the why behind the concept plans. Okay, the necessary physical growth of the school, site circulation, the renovation, and social hall and academic additions. Kevin here is going to address that for a little bit, and then I'll walk you quickly through the presentation.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present our revised concept for improvements to the St. Mary's School campus. Your continued feedback is critical to ensuring the success of our project, which is the culmination of years of improvements. Last month, I discussed at some length the history of St. Mary Parish and School and the role they have played in the history of both the spiritual and educational betterment of German Village and the broader South Side. I also outlined the more recent improvements made to the St. Mary campus. Lastly, our team presented an initial concept for campus improvements designed for an ultimate student enrollment of 500. This evening's discussion will focus on two basic areas. First, we will provide a bit of background on how we arrived at our current site plan. Most importantly, our exploration of several alternative locations for the new cafeteria, the largest single new mass of the site. Second, we'll present our revised concept for your consideration. While there were many clear messages expressed by the commission last month, probably the clearest was regarding the west facade of the main education building. We heard loud and clear that the original aesthetics of the building must remain, and you will note this in our presentation. Though not broadly embraced, we continue to pursue a small discrete addition at the building's southwest corner. We also noted significant concern about the size and nature of the rectory's green space, along with its location and rear addition. We'll be addressing each of these issues in detail. Lastly, we were pleased that both the central infill, along with the cafeteria/social hall additions, and the general site circulation plan received positive feedback. We appreciate the commission's input as we continue to refine our concept in preparation for making an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The goal of our project is to provide the best possible educational opportunities to our diverse student body in a safe, secure, and modern environment. Thank you.
So continuing from last month, today's presentation includes revisions and clarifications on the following particular items of notes by the commission in October. Revised site plan, rectory relocation, rectory addition, and the 3rd Street facade, all of which Morgan outlined in the introduction. I wanted to start today with a quick review of the existing conditions and the challenges that they bring forth. The school needs significant renovation, and with the growth of the school in the parish, additional common and academic space is necessary. And if you would advance to the next slide, please. Potential locations for the expansion, however, are limited to either the front or the rear. Shown here are the 4 potential locations for expansion, with the proposed solution in light blue and listed as D. This solution is the only option that makes site circulation possible and keeps any addition in the front within the existing building lines. Moreover, our concept allows for the existing green space in front of the school to remain. Moving on to the revised site plan. The site plan has been revised from October to provide dedicated green space in front of both the school and the rectory. Furthermore, the rectory has been pushed back an additional 15 feet from our October presentation. Slide, please. The results are 2 distinct open spaces. In front of the school is an active green space, one without tall playground equipment. Second is a dedicated passive green space that will not be used for children playing, but rather social and community events as it is now. This space will be separated with a fence and gates and will be unique and special to the rectory. Let's move on to rectory relocation, please. Based on feedback from October, we have revised the site plan of the school building to allow the rectory to be pushed back from 3rd Street an additional 15 feet. One slide back, please. Doing so provides more open space in front of the rectory. On this slide, you can see there's the existing rectory location, the proposed location in October, and then the revised plan location of today, allowing more open green space, hearing the commission's comments. Next slide is actually showing the actual versus usable green space in front of the rectory. As you can see, the usable space in the proposed scheme is larger than the existing conditions. Next slide, please. This is evident in aerial shots of the school, where trees take up a significant portion of the area in front of the rectory. The trees have a low canopy that makes the space underneath them virtually unusable. Moreover, they obfuscate and block the view of the rectory from 3rd Street. Our proposal relocates the rectory to this tree line, maintaining the open space in front of the building on 3rd Street as requested. Next slide. Doing so provides the much needed drop-off area, entry plaza, and social hall as we discussed last month. Next, I'd like to move on to the rectory addition. Since our last meeting, we have undertaken research, selective demolition, and exploratory analysis, and provided photographic evidence indicating the addition of the rectory as such. Next slide. These photographs show the original building and the addition. Next slide, please. The stone base does not continue to the rear addition, and the sill condition is different. Next slide, please. The brick coursing is different in the original building and the addition. Shown here are the soldier courses. Next slide, please. The eave construction, features, and alignment are not congruent between the original and the addition. Based on the framing, you're fine. The original building also did not feature these vents that you can see here in the addition and the 2nd story overhead space. They're present in the addition, not in the original construction. Next slide, please. Moving into the basement, you can see here the framing of the existing building. Next slide, please. And this, it's hard to see, there's conduit and everything in the way, but a beam was originally used as the exterior foundation, is now an internalized lintel. That's at the condition between the addition and the rectory. Next slide, please. Finally, we see a crack forming in the basement slab at the connection between the original building and the addition. The concrete floor was added sometime after the addition and was constructed without control or expansion joints at this location. A visible crack is evident at this connection between the addition and the original construction, indicating that the building and the addition are moving independent of one another. Next slide, please. And then finally, we'd like to finish about the 3rd Street facade. We have revised the strategy of the 3rd Street facade, as Kevin alluded. Next slide, please. No longer presenting an historically reworked facade, our proposal now is to restore, renovate, and replace existing materials in kind where possible. Where this is not possible, we will update the materials to modern equivalent. The existing entry door will be replaced with a fixed window to match. The proposed addition to the southwest will not alter the essential character of the existing school building. In accordance with the German Village Commission guidelines, this addition is set back 12 inches from the existing facade. It is separated from the existing wall with an 8-inch reveal. The addition is 12 inches lower than the existing facade and does not interfere with the existing coping height. Moreover, the materials and details of the addition are simple. They do not have unnecessary ornamentation and are differentiated from the existing school. And then finally, the last slide, I just wanted to make a comment about zoning requests because you saw it on the agenda. We are currently in conversation with the City of Columbus regarding any potential zoning variances that may be requested, and we will have that information at a future meeting. Thank you for your time.
Questions, comments from the commission?
I can't remember on the school building on the new street. Are the doors inset into a little alcove?
Yes, they are about 16 inches.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, yes, when other buildings or former entranceway into just essentially a wall, it's a glass wall, no wall. We try to preserve the original appearance as an entrance. So I would view this more favorably if you could see that the historic structure, the historic use of the building there was as an entrance. I don't care if you go in and out.
Right, sure.
Or whether it's bolted in place, so it can't be used as a means of ingress and egress. But
yeah,
I think preserving the historic character of that feature of the building as an entrance.
Right. And that's the plan, if you refer to the elevation on the previous slide. And I may have mentioned it, I said a lot of words there, so forgive me if we missed it.
No, it says, it's very clear, replace door with a fixed window. So
And it'll appear like the door. Yes.
okay, and it'll still be inset?
And it will still be inset, yes. And then if you refer to the site plan, while there is a concrete path that leads to that door now, we'd like to have that anymore so we can have some green space. But we'll leave the avenue of trees that line that, which you can see. So there's still a remnant of its original entry. It just won't have the concrete, and it'll be a fixed window instead of operable door. Great comment, thank you.
So the new addition seems kind of, the addition that's in the southwest corner. I don't know, it seems odd to me architecturally. It looks like it's trying to mimic something historical with the stone base and the, I mean, I think I'd almost rather see a glass box or something that is not
Guidelines say new
exposed.
additions on fronts.
Excuse me?
Guidelines say new additions on fronts.
Mm.
Yeah, and that gap is a feature of the mid-century modern design. Probably didn't want it to see it filled.
Explain the gap.
Oh, the way the Third Street meets the rear L offset, and that's the recess that's at that corner.
Corner cut off.
So question architecturally, if assuming acceptance to putting something in that void space there, could that be mitigated by having a step back? So you still get a bit of return, or is it too egregious from your perspective put anything there.
It was a glass box, kind of red
To
transparent.
me, it would have to look like it's not even attached to the building. You're even gonna let them do an addition.
Yeah, one of the challenges with an addition to, a modernist building is which way do you take it? Do you take it more traditional or do you take it more contemporary? We went conservative with this approach, but certainly are open to a more of the time addition to the front, clearly distinguishing it. And while not shown on that site plan here, kind of indicated in text, we plan on stepping that back so that there still is a little bit of that condition.
What are you putting in that corner?
Just gonna ask that.
Yeah, it's great question. The much needed classroom space. So one of the challenges with this project, which we've mentioned, is we're going from, I think, 7 to 12 classrooms. 9 to 12 classrooms
In this building.
within this building. And one of the ways we're achieving that, you'll notice that none of that's really in any additions except for the southwest part. And it's because we're kind of tightening things up and being more flexible with interior space. But this is the one location where we're kind of having an addition with academic space.
I'm of the opinion of, I could see putting something there, but I think it needs to be light, it needs to read as if it's not there. I think having what's shown right now in the elevation, having that brick with the windows, it comes off as we took a house, an old house, trying to look like an old house and just slammed up against the building.
Yeah.
And you have old architectural details and language smashed up against a modernist structure.
Right.
It's not, doesn't really know what it wants to be. I think the tried and true method is having some kind of glass structure there to, I understand it's students and it's learning, but we also have to look at historical.
Understood.
Unless you could move a stair there, take the stair space from the classroom.
Yeah. I was hoping it was a stair.
Great
Also,
feedback.
it looks like you're gonna be putting casements in, or there wasn't casements before on virtual St. Mary's.
There is. Every other window along the ribbon window is operable casement window, and we're going to be replacing in kind.
And you're gonna maintain the same frame face width,
Correct.
but we won't be able to see it's a casement or anything, but it still look the same.
It'll match what's there.
Currently hoppers or awning windows, I think we're gonna put
Correct.
I'm just trying to make sure we got the same stick face.
visually, yeah.
So I don't know how to discuss the big lion, big elephant in the room, which is moving the rectory and taking the back off of it. I don't even know how to approach it or start, but I'll start with, again, a conversation about the mass of the building. It's also the mass void of the district and the structure and the rhythm and all that stuff that goes along with it. And more importantly, the fact that this is a point of decompression and green space, including the trees in front of the rectory, whether we can see it or not, going down Third Street. And there was a study done, I think, 10 years ago by, I think roughly sometime by the society to take a look at Third Street improvements, and it started with an analysis of what was existing on Third Street. And it talked about going all the way from Livingston to the park. And one of the significant points of change in that they noted was this green space of decompression, et cetera, on Third Street that psychologically was one of the divisions in Third Street going north to south or south to north. I think we have to keep that. I don't think moving the rectory back 15 feet is still, it just changes.
Ned, when you mentioned, just so I understand correctly, your comment about that decompression, that void space, is it specifically the deep void in front of the rectory, or is it just with the void in front of the rectory / school?
Both, the whole thing. And the study at that time pointed that out, that it was significant character of Third Street. You've got things lining up, basically lining up all the way down Third north of that and south of that, but St. Mary's is setback. Rectory and school. It's a significant feature of Third Street.
And the convent used to be set back too, right? Before it disappeared.
I can't answer. That's that rectory's original structure from 1872.
No, the other side of on the other side of the church. Wasn't there originally a convent? No,
So next to the church is it's now the Berkeley Center, correct?
yes, right.
Yeah, so it
Yes.
shows that on the page 23, the Sanborn map, the convent and the rectory were.
There had to be a convent.
even.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
were-
sorry, the sample map would be a good.
And so when that building was built, it
And the church was up front.
brought everything forward. The church was out front, everything else was set back. Yeah, you can see it from the. Oh,
So one item of consideration that was done relatively recently in front of the Berkeley Center, there was asphalt, and that was converted into an open space and a prayer garden
nicely done.
to allow for that.
Still trying to figure out the difference between a garden and a prayer garden. It's nicely done.
It also got two big curb cuts.
More statues.
Yeah.
And I would also say you have to certainly make a case that the addition to the rectory is an addition, but I don't think you've made a case that it's not significant.
Yeah, I guess we haven't addressed that aspect of it yet. So, one of the arguments is, it's perhaps a contributing structure, but because of its age, but it's not contributing from Third Street. It's not experienced from Third Street. And in that sense, not contributing to that we're so, diligently discussing today. It's in the rear.
So my concern with the addition is we'd have a very hard time approving removal of a similar addition to any residents of that vintage in the historic district. But, yeah, right. But this is a residence service. I want to make sure.
Is one of the factors of need, try to step back a bit on what got us to that. It certainly wouldn't be our first course of action to desire to take that action with the rectory. In this nature of expansion and what we don't have in the structure, we don't have a cafeteria. We don't have a place where the students can eat morning and lunch meal. They eat in the classroom. When we looked at, as Matt pointed out in the presentation, looked at the alternatives available to us to expand north, south, west, east, and our available options were limited, other than the option that we selected that provided us that balance of providing the space in a very constrained environment, and at the same time, understanding it presents this conflict.
Yeah,
So
it looks like moving the rectory forward and eliminating the addition are the linchpins of the whole project. Am I wrong about that?
They are the linchpins of the expansion element of the project.
Yes.
And that expansion brings with it the large space for the cafeteria, the kitchen, for the social needs and gatherings of the parish combined with the community. So you're correct in that confluence of goals against the rectory option.
So, apologize, I wasn't here on previous reviews, so I'm kind of touched with any comments I made. Still, apologize. Was any thought into the parking lot space behind the middle school? any additional area or space. Just looking at the sheet 9, which has kind of the layout options, one option was to create that building B in the back, which obviously is an issue, but if disconnecting it from main classroom building structure was an option, I didn't see something on the back of the middle school. Obviously, there's other considerations with the street crossing and whatnot.
Correct.
Sure, that was evaluated as a potential.
Yeah, it was evaluated at a high level like the other options. Some of the key detriments of that proposal is it's almost unusable as the functions that are required from it. So one, we have a cafeteria function, so now we're taking the little children and having them cross the street rather than the older children. Can you address that? And I appreciate your understanding of that. Two, it's not adjacent to some of the functions in the school that would be associated with the kitchen. So that could be, the cafeteria, the gymnasium and other events that might happen there. Three, it's not just a cafeteria for the children, but it also serves the needs of the parish, and having it again separate, a different block from the church, the Berkeley, the rectory. There's that level of detachment. And then fourth, if we took that parking lot and used it for the expansion, we'd have nowhere to park there. And so now we're thinking about, ADA accessibility, elderly trying to go to events there. And again, they generally would be parking in the main lot. That's at the middle of the elementary school, and then walking that distance. It just wasn't large enough to accommodate all those factors.
The issue with location B was the loss of parking, or?
So B severs the alleyway leading to Mohawk, and again, separates it from the gymnasium and the school. And now we have children, again, walking through parking lots, and that's one of the safety concerns of this process to begin with. And parking.
But is there another shape to B that would allow you to provide a continuous green space? Or?
So another shape to B would still separate it from the school, remove all the parking, which we're trying to add parking with this project, and also would sever sight lines for means of egress as well. So say you rotate it at 90 degrees. Generally speaking, those types of spaces need to be about this proportion, 1.66 to 1. And so if we can't make it a square, but if we rotated it, if we go parallel to the spec center, then we've created a whole other group of issues with cars jacking up and traffic. And again, it's detached from the school, which is almost a non-starter.
Could be attached to the second floor though, right?
Yes, there could be an attachment. One of the alternatives we studied was the value of the space in relation to the educational needs. And it's not very functional. Certainly it's space, and it could be attached. Obviously, there are safety concerns, sprinkler systems and whatnot, issues that we'd have to address within that space if it's attached. But, which could be secondary. But the main functionality just doesn't lend itself to an educational purpose.
I'm kind of playing Tetris here, but if you took the reddish part of table C and just put it behind the rectory, I'm not sure what portion of that addition is kitchen backup space to the main hall. So that just the combined dark green area is the meeting space. Then whatever support space supports it in the area that's red and C, which is put right behind the rectory.
I would probably have to say that C didn't fully describe the necessary space for the expansion. I think what Matt was showing there, that C jutting out there blocks that LaSalle
I'm
path.
just saying, take the part that's blocking, just put it behind the rectory.
But C of itself doesn't eliminate D.
You need both C and D.
No, we don't need C.
I'm just saying the space that's marked as C,
Yeah.
that's red,
Right.
I don't think.
Just take that rectangle,
No, I understand.
put it,
I understand where you're going with that.
yeah, same, like the addition wraps behind the rectory and takes up that gap that's in the back.
Yeah, one of the things we're, again, trying to do with this addition is we keep talking about the view from Third Street. And now we're projecting something that's behind the rectory. And, you know, I'm hearing from the commission, the mass void, the rhythm, the importance of open space. And now I've got a building that's kind of a backdrop to the rectory. I mean, while it's certainly possible from a functional standpoint, the logistics of having it actually operate as a kitchen in the social hall, still be distant enough from the rectory, there's just not enough room.
Why do you mean distant enough from the rectory?
Well, I mean, it's very difficult to have a building very close to another building for fire rating purposes, especially a historic structure like that. So we try to keep a distance of 10 to 20 feet as a minimum. And so now I'm stepping from the back of the addition into the road, the Lizelle part that's coming into the parking lot.
Right now, just trying to get them here, so the D portion, Lansing, we look at sheet 15, which kind of lays out the different components, is the kitchen, classrooms, library. That's new space, correct?
Correct.
And the 1.5 story cafeteria social hall is new space.
Correct.
Did you look at going 3 floors as opposed to 2 floors for the kitchen classrooms addition? If we can get the say leniency to go up more, would that give you space that you need?
Or
So-
down.
Or go down. You know, I think to keep the site intact, I think there'd be some acceptance to go up, down, to grow the space that way. If it preserves the historic layout of the site as is. And the reason behind that for me is, historic preservation wise, there is precedence for moving buildings in concept. But what you risk is when you move the building, you lose the historic language of place. Oftentimes you see it moving to another site. So keeping it on the site helps mitigate that a bit. But to move a historic structure and to remove a historic addition, whether it's seen from Third or not, that's not something we really take into account on any other project. So you're moving it and you're removing part of it. So it's kind of 2 strikes against it. So if we can find another way to keep it as is where it's at, I think growing up is an option that would be amenable to commission members, at least me. And it just feels like looking at the plan here saying it's a 1.5 story cafeteria social hall, and then looking at the rendering, whether that's true design or not, it just looks like you're taking up a lot of footprint space for essentially a single floor worth of use. So it's an architectural decision driving the use. I think there may be some opportunity to look at that.
Russell. Stewart School, did they drop the gymnasium down?
Drop the gymnasium down to keep the addition from overwhelming
Yeah.
the historic building. The cafeteria is in the basement as well, and the library. All the big spaces are in the lower level. So is the cafeteria social hall like 2 stories? Like a grand space, or is there a level of classrooms above that?
It is a grand space, yes, to serve the needs of the parish. The cafeteria, the kitchen. So it's hard to show it without a floor plan. I probably should have brought that. The kitchen is 1 story. What actually happens is with the social hall, for us to be able to get all the uses of it, there is a single story, single height space that is partitionable off from the 1.5 larger space. So that way, different events can happen and students can phase lunches as needed. So part of that 1.5 story space there is also kind of connected to the cafeteria.
There's opportunity to put kitchen space, if you go down, put kitchen space down, typically you don't have a lot of windows in kitchens in the first place. Cafeteria spaces, kids aren't really running the windows to look outside. We could put some of those back of house spaces, push those down, still even go up an extra floor and maybe still have some kind of large space architectural feature back there with the rectory remaining in place. I think there's some options. I don't know if it's acceptable to the applicant to look shit out.
Sure, we could follow. Can we challenge, some dialogue on putting a structure you can see on the southeast corner there? Obviously, whatever will go there presents a difficulty in visibility from, the north, from certainly the east onto the property. So the absence of view of that area was a consideration of us, and as a driver to the removal of that rear addition. I guess I'd like to understand the lack of visibility, the removal of that rear addition, the extent that those two balance each other or don't balance each other.
Well, if it was just any other project, it'd be like, it's a brick addition built before 1891, it's old, and it's relatively intact. It's not like it's been messed around, windows knocked, new windows in, old windows closed up. So it's an intact architecturally significant addition, and it's masonry. So it's a significant addition. So all of that just says, yeah, you're not allowed to demolish it.
And typically, for a residential project, put an addition on the back of a house, you wouldn't allow that to get torn down. You could attach to it, there's methods of doing that appropriately, but we would keep that and maintain it. We would not allow a resident to tear it down. I think the other piece is it's historic in nature. It's both by it's substantial. It's original-ish to the property. It's definitely before and during our significant period of importance for the village. So to take it out it's a hard pill for any of us to swallow. Any project, much less.
Guessing that the addition was built because there was more than one parish priest. There were multiple priests. They needed more space for the people who lived and worked in that building. To that extent, the architecture is a reflection of the historic function and use of the structure, that if it were to be removed, would lose the piece of the building that reflects that former use.
Wasn't going to go into the slippery slope, but I will, since you mentioned that. It's the argument of you can't see it from the public way or the primary facade. It takes you down that rabbit hole of, well, then why do we keep anything past the front facade? You're still maintaining the facade of the structure, the streetscape, but you're losing everything behind it. So where does that trail of logic end? I think that's the slippery slope of you can't see it, so it doesn't make a difference. And so we've had some heartfelt conversations about how do you attach to things? What can you do? Can you punch openings once it becomes interior space? What happens to it? And those are philosophical questions that the commission's been dealing with over the past couple of years as we try to find ways to let the community grow. So we're definitely tuned to, we need to grow, we need to make sure that we're livable, the neighborhood grows with us and we grow with it. We gotta make sure we're doing respectful to the Arctic fabric that's here currently.
The one, Commissioner, the challenge I would provide back is if you look at the square footage that presented, I can appreciate maybe back then the need for more people.
Don't know, I grew up at a time when there was more than one parish priest
Sure.
in most of these rectories.
It is our understanding that the evolution of that structure was at a time that the utilities of plumbing and electricity came into being.
Yeah.
And that those were provided based on those needs to provide a kitchen space and plumbing. And those exactly fit the nature of that building construction.
This is old enough, there might have been a summer kitchen there at some point.
So in the aspect of functionality, certainly the functionality of that space is very limited. The supporting utilities serve the building well, and the space need of the original rectory seemed to be the satisfaction of what the use of the structure was all about.
Yeah.
So I guess I would contend, as history and technology changed and utilities were provided, so as the expansion provided the benefits of those utilities to the structure. And that is what we learned in our study.
Now, that's a real slippery slope.
Doesn't make it any less significant.
Any additional questions, feedback you have from us?
Those are the key 4 items. Note that we understand the feedback and appreciate especially bringing up the elephant in the room to give us some
It's a hard one.
understanding.
It's a hard one.
And understanding, one other point for us, given the groups we serve, given the means within the parish and the challenges we have for the affordability of the goals and objectives we have, when we talk about options like excavation for a lower level or the addition, we did look at addition for play space, a 3rd floor addition, but the cost of those are so large that it almost takes you down a path that you can't potentially provide them economically, given the means you have with the parish. And so that balance of doing the most we can to afford versus we can't afford it, we can't provide these options. So I'd appreciate if we had the economic means to do all those things, but I can tell you right now that those things are challenging for us economically to afford to the parish if we were to excavate deeply and put a 3rd level one.
And I would say from a contractor's perspective, my day job, the cost of adding floors vertically is typically 90% always cheaper than trying to build extra space horizontally. So I would, not saying you're incorrect, I would just challenge the assumption that adding a floor is going to be more expensive, economically speaking, than adding a dedicated single.
You save money by not moving the rectory or digging out its new foundation.
Moving out of records.
Yeah, certainly, there's that. But generally, above ground floors, yes. Underground floors are very expensive. That's why all the parking in the city is above ground and not underground. So that becomes challenging. I think the biggest challenge for us, just simple terms, is when you guys understand the need to have a large enough space, right? We're here now. We need a space large enough to house about 250 people. There's a certain footprint that just has to be on one level. Now, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the best I can to get that 250 footprint on that one level and see if I can squeeze it in there. Unfortunately, there's other aspects that go with that too. When you have a large assembly space, got to have a lot of bathrooms. I've got to have a unisex family bathroom. I've got a lot of code requirements that tack on. So it's not really just that big social hall. And we would love it to be bigger, but we kind of made it as small as we possibly could and still viable for the footprint issues. So it just ground floor space is important. And we're going to try and cram it all in there, but unfortunately, sometimes it's just not all of it can fit. We have a very large site here, and we have this tiny little rectangle in which we can build, and it's just very problematic. So, but that's what they pay me for. So we'll come back next week or next month.
So am I right, and in thinking that in a day gone past, the parish was the economic engine that drove the school. But today, the school is the economic engine that drives the viability of the parish. Is my surmise accurate?
It's changed now. I would say that because of the dynamics with ed choice school vouchers now, the school has to be economically dependent now. Because again, the funding is different. The demographics for people going to church are older, the younger families aren't there. And so the opportunity for a kid to have a better education is high because again, the level of Catholic school education is very high as well.
Yeah.
So there's that freedom of choice. Here at St. Mary's School, it's independent of the church. Because again, the church is now, the school needs to be independent of itself because it was a drain for the church.
Okay, well, so I've got several misconceptions working in there.
As a motion, of course, just to make sure we're all on board, you please raise your right hand. You swear that you told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, contractor, yes.
Yeah, you always have to
You
swear.
gotta follow process.
And you always have to swear before you say your name, because otherwise you might be lying about your name.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, you're the only priest on it in terms of, yes, yes.
I think I can add one more thing to that. In the present day, the quality and value of the school is very high. German Village in the South Side community. So the attractiveness of helping the school accomplish its goals is very important to us, to German Village and the greater South Side. We talked at last meeting about the demographics of those that we serve in the school. Over 30 different zip codes are represented here. And it certainly is a help to the city, to the downtown area, the larger area. And it's based on the quality of that program that we should be very proud of as in German Village.
And to the extent that the decisions we make here have to involve a balance of historic preservation and economic development, which we're clearly directed to do. So does the school in fact serve the educational needs of German Village and the southern South Columbus?
Yes, it does.
Okay, I don't know where you're drawing your students from.
30
It's a
different
funny-
zip codes across the greater.
It used to be the immediate neighborhood. I know it's not that anymore.
Back in the day, you walked to school.
Yeah, Jeffrey, that's the only Catholic school in downtown and on the south end.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and so we got a lot for catering. And we're trying, especially now with the Catholic churches now. I have 3 churches on the south end, and I'm the only priest here.
Right.
And so we've got a real crisis at hand.
And we also want to say it's not exclusive to Catholics. It's a Catholic ministry to educate. There's many religions that are embraced by the students of the school.
I presume that. So my wife is chairman of the board of trustees of a Mennonite college populated primarily of Catholic students.
All right. Well, we appreciate the commission's feedback to us today. We will go back and look at additional alternatives to bring back to our December meeting. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Before the next conceptual, was there anybody here for a non-conceptual review from previous? Okay. All right, item number 20, GV-21-11-034, 133 Thurman. Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I certainly do.
Yes. Please state your name.
Logan Fitch.
You.
Karen Cheryl.
Very much. All right.
Proposed work description for item number GV 2111-034. Applicant is seeking support for the parcel splits and combinations shown in the master plan. All the lots are proposed to be single-family homes, the exception of one parcel that will remain to provide parking for the commercial building at the southwest corner of Thurman Avenue and South 4th Street. The parcels are proposed to have dwelling units of attached garages. Master plan shows the maximum building footprint sizes that will be requested for zoning purposes. Included are architectural drawings for proposed homes running nursery and for 143 Burbank Avenue. Staff analysis, the following is taken from an unapproved October 19, 2021 Durham Village Commission hearing minutes. Commissioners stated that the curb cut is existing and not historical and alley there. Since the alley is not historical, commissioners will be fine making the proposed alley 20 feet wide. Proposed 8 parking spots indicated in the site plan are there to compensate for the additional parking needed for a parking variance for a commercial building the applicants own. Commission suggests a request for a variance that eliminates these 8 parking spots. Applicant indicates that once present lease is up, they will most likely remove 8 parking spots and add an additional dwelling there. Commissioners agree that the lot sizes are proportionate to the rhythm of the village. They are just concerned about the designs and massing of the properties facing the streets, Thurman, South 4th Street, and Nursery Lane. Commissioners like that the placement of detached garage off the alley, proposed carriage houses and garage follow the guidelines and respects scale and massing with variation of garages and carriage houses. Commissioners asked if the properties will be sold as individual units, asking if public sewer for each. The applicant responded yes, but proposed sewer to be added down the alley for proposed carriage houses. Commissioner asked who would own that there possibly should be some form of organization for property sharing alley for maintenance issues, i.e. snow shoveling and repaving. Commissioner Harkey stated that the first page of the site plan does not match the third page for lettering, with request applicant to match before rescinding application. Commissioners requested that the home from Thurman Avenue to be a little grander with variation of different style porches, which follow the rhythm of the homes on the street. Commissioners believe the proposed Thurman home is too tall in relation to the other buildings on that street. Commissioner requested a conceptual streetscape for massing and heights of overall context to see how it all starts fitting together on Thurman Avenue, South 4th Street, and Nursery Lane, and how they relate to the adjacent streetscapes. Based off the example design and drawings of the building on Nursery, the commissioners feel as if the sample of proposed buildings seems taller than what is already existing on the opposite side of the street. These homes would typically be 2-story or 1.5-story homes. Commissioners asked for clarity on how each variance applies to each lot and dimensions of each lot. Commissioner Foley stated that he would be comfortable with taking action on the site plan or lot splits and requested items are submitted. Staff recommends the commission shop for feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future GBC meeting. No action is required.
Anything else to add?
That was a lot.
Was a lot.
We give you a workout, don't we? How do you want to do this? It wasn't very long ago that we had a conversation. I can kind of re-summarize everything, or we could just kind of dig in. One of the main things that we're doing here this evening is we really want to get to a point where we can make an application for action. I guess it's due next week, right? So it'll be due next week. So we want to get the necessary feedback so that we can move forward with the more technical portions of the lot splits and rezoning, not rezoning, but lot splits and combinations and parceling and things like that. So if you turn to sheet A3, I do have the whole list of variances right next to the site plan, with our proposed footprints, as well as the parcel dimensions and things like that, so we can kind of go through and talk about each parcel, or we can kind of start at the top. And we have done a lot of work with regard to the streetscape and starting to mass out not only what's on our block, but what is also on adjacent across the street on Thurman, across the street, across the alley on Nursery, and on.
We'll use my commissioner powers to ask my question first.
Sure.
So page 1 of the application, then we'll jump into page 3. Parcel 11.
Yes.
And then the east side of parcels 12, 13, 14. You got a hashed out region on the east side of those 3 parcels.
Yep.
It looks like it's crossing over into parcel 11.
Yep.
Parcel 11 has a future square footage listed there.
Yep. Morgan is on the additional, exhibit that I created to answer that question. So what you see there is, the proposed paving, the red are the lot lines, the triangles are the parking places as well as the direction that they will be, accessed. So you've got a 20-foot maneuvering zone behind the parcels 12, 13, 14 to the lot line. And then you have what is a 22.6 foot wide lot behind that. I understand your question. I think on sheet A1, my patch.
That was my consideration is if parcel 11 ends up being built out in the future, which is what seems to be an option here. I just want to make sure that we had the drive space to get into the garages appropriately and didn't have a long-term.
Yep. So I answered your question, right?
Okay, so this would, if I remember, those spaces are being provided for an adjacent property.
That's
The
correct.
idea is that once that agreement was over, this property then could be developed. And that's the reason you shifted the last two parking spaces to be off the new alley that way, so that they could be for that property. Is that correct?
Theoretically, yes. I was trying to also take a little bit of pressure off of parcel 14 and just the amount of vehicular circulation that would be happening back there, just trying to turn that a little bit. Thinking the same way, maybe I should have had the two southernmost spaces be head in off the alley, which wouldn't be that odd, and then be able to get that tree island above those two spaces. So that actually might be a good revision, but I mean, we're really trying to think about how to we're trying to make this feel like how it, that it's not a parking lot in the middle of these homes.
I think if you turn the two off the alley, I think the problem you end up getting is now you have no separation between kind of the drive and the parking. It's just going to look like a parking lot if you do that.
Right.
It's going to have a giant curb or no curb. It's going to be essentially curb.
Yes. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I understood the parceling and what future potential would be when we get there.
Yep.
Okay, so on to page 3.
Well, I was gonna say,
Yes.
if you're gonna do that landscape strip, I would do it parallel with the upper valley, during those two parking spots.
Okay.
Just don't get that complicated. I don't think you've gained anything, to be honest with you. Nice spot, but
So page 3 with the variances. So we just tick down variances 1 through 12. We'll reference the plan. If we got to jump to an elevation or an isometric rendering, we can do that.
Sure. So let's see here. Number 1 is with regard to allowing the carriage houses. So that would be parcels 1, 3, 5, and 6. As we discussed last time, we're still working on the economics of mainline extension in the for the sewer in the easement in the center. So we'll try to resolve that.
I would say from my perspective, that variance is highly dependent upon each lot and how it's developed, like you said. So I think that should come with the property. I think we should go on the record as saying if we have a problem with the carriage house or not in concept, that the variance for those lots should come when those lots get built. What we don't want to have is get a variance for the property and then we end up with not getting a carriage house, And now we have this stray variance just floating out there that's not even used. That ends up just muddying the waters. Why variance something that's not gonna be built?
Right, I understand. Yeah, let us, we'll consider that and make sure we either have a good answer to it or
Why do you perceive that as a problem? Just out of curiosity, we're trying to think it through.
So one of the complaints about the zoning conversation now is there's so many variances because zoning code doesn't allow things. We've had conversations about carriage houses. If we end up coming through and we say we're gonna put a smaller house there, put a carriage house up, well, they can get a carriage house by default because it's there. So I don't want to throw issues at lots just to have them in case.
Yeah, I follow.
Are you looking at the zoning variances then to the whole development and not the individual parts and pieces of it inside?
I'm looking at, so what you're gonna have to essentially subdivide everything up and then get the variances for each lot individually. I don't think you can apply for, I want to subdivide and variance everything all in one single.
it's all, yeah, it's all one application. It's all, I mean, we're attempting to do this all at one time, in one application to,
I think that what Anthony's getting at though is I think, I speak for you, but if there are variances that are solely dependent on the lot versus variances that are required to make the thing happen.
Yeah.
I think he's picking apart in his mind. What he doesn't want to happen is let's just take parcel 1, for instance. You have the ability to build a carriage house there because we gave a variance, but you come back and build a house that's half the size of that, and we would think that a carriage house would be appropriate based on the actual house. Now,
it would still be within the purview of the commission though to
Correct, but if-
balance the architecture of.
But if we deny it and it goes to BZA and they say, well, you're denying them out of hand just because they have this variance in place, it creates a contentious situation that shouldn't be in the first place. I'm all for getting the variances required to get these lots set up the way they need to be, and the egress and ingress out of all that stuff. But the actual variance for a parcel is driven by the design. The design's not there and the design's not applied. Because back to the conversation earlier of when Mr. Hugus came to apply, he wanted variances before the design was even talked about or design was agreed upon. And so now we're into that situation of cart before the horse. I think we can agree that if this is what is done, we would be in support of the variances concept. I think we go on record saying that. I just feel uncomfortable just saying, okay, we're going to grant all these variances and we're going to figure out how this all gets built out. 1 year, 5, 10 years down the road, who knows?
Okay. We will,
That's just me speaking. If anybody else disagrees, it's fine.
I agree.
but Anthony, do you think there are variances here though that we can provide a recommendation on, such as the vision angle one, or those types of?
I think the vision angles, I would be uncomfortable with that because it's really driven by, or showing house on the lot that's going to be taking up the lot. We're talking about footprints. I don't see smaller property going on there. And that's more about overall size of the development. I think that would be appropriate. Looking down, so vision clearance, I think maneuvering, I think that's going to help you set up your boundaries of where you gotta drive. Lot width requirements, I think that's acceptable.
So you're good right now, I think, just as we're 2 and 4.
2 and 4. I'd be good on 3.
Yeah, I'm kind of ticking through and thinking, it's not till we get down to, like lot coverage at 11, maybe side yards. But that really has to do with like the location of the proposed home that we're you know, the home that we're proposing. And that kind of does really, impact what we would be doing with the lot splits, because, for example, on parcel, 14, you know, we're proposing a 25-foot wide lot, and a 2-foot side yard for the home that would be there. I mean, that's, you know, a standard 3-foot on the one side, but a 2-foot on the side that is next to the easement. You know, like if there were concerns about that particular setback, we might look at things differently.
And for those, I think in concept, I don't have a problem with saying that what you're proposing there is acceptable.
Okay.
If the design meets it. My concern would be if you're saying we need to reduce the, the side yard setback on parcel 1, 6.2 feet to 3 feet. But you end up building it and it's 5 feet and not 3 feet. Well, then it's basically grandfathering in 2 extra feet, no purpose whatsoever. That's kind of where I'm
Are
at.
we looking at variances that would be typical, that we have to make any property align with how it's built in the village? I mean, that's kind of where we're at. I mean, we've got the zoning code that says this, but because of the nature of the fabric and the structure and the rhythm and everything in the village, we've got to,
We're trying to maintain.
we're trying to maintain. Those are the variances that we always have to give out to bring a property into line.
Right.
So,
And then we pick a whole bunch of other ones after that.
I don't think I'm really against anything you're saying here.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't approve these or recommend these if it came to us with the application of the architecture. It's just kind of,
right, you need the design first.
yeah, but it's like I said, if you bring this to me with the design, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Right.
But just saying it's fine, and all of a sudden tomorrow, things fall flat. We get it subdivided up, and then everything's out the window, we walk away from the project, but the lots are divided, all these variances are now living on the lot. The next person who comes through, they want to build something totally different, and they could potentially use variances to play the game, essentially. That's where I'm coming from. I'm not saying that you have any bad or ill intent.
No, I understand.
We've seen it happen before.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. I'll address your concern with our zoning consultant, and it might be appropriate for him to be here next month to address this situation from a more technical standpoint, but because there is a lot of technical city stuff that we have to work through with some of these things. And so I need to figure out, because I know my client doesn't want to come back to you guys for 13 parcels to talk about, and have, pay for the zoning consultant, if we're designing these buildings over the next 6 months. And then coming back, every month, and then having to apply for individual variances for each parcel. Just the cost of that can get exorbitant with regard to not necessarily the application fees, but just the amount of time that's involved in the consultant times, et cetera.
You knowing what your intent is for going forward with these. So you should have an idea of what.
Well, and that's kind of why we're trying to show like footprints, and we also spent an inordinate amount of time in the last handful of days trying to mass out buildings and start to answer some of the questions about design. And we previously submitted, the homes on Nursery, when you look at sheet A22, those are the homes on Thurman. And of course, we're not completely done, but these are, you know, probably the first foot forward in our design intent. And so, I mean, kind of what we're showing, that's the wrong A22.
And I mean, looking at A22, you know, we looked at parcel 2 last time with that
It's,
railing.
it's the one with the.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm looking at this, I see a whole lot in overall that I'm really called at or have anything that I really would say, heck, no. And Ned may not like parcel 1, potentially.
Yeah.
But
That was kind of the last building we were working on and ran out of time.
Oh.
It was like, well, I mean, I
don't think that was part of the project, never mind.
No, I know, we wanted to show something with a higher mass there and a little bit more body because it's at the corner. Something that maybe even had a little more commercial flair to it because it is something that you would, you know, find more like the front of the home directly to the left of parcel 5. You know, has that kind of more commercial storefront face.
Scattered site type things.
Yeah, you know, so, but, you know, just in the amount of time that we had, we didn't really get that, fully developed. So,
Anthony, it seems like even if we have full-blown detailed design, structure by structure, and we approve a certificate of appropriateness for that and make the recommendations for the necessary variances, nothing could still get built. And we have those variances out there in exactly the way you would like to avoid. So I'm not sure.
And this is why I'm not for giving zoning variances before we know what the building is designed.
Well, yeah, but we might know the build, what my point is, we might know the
Yeah.
building design and it still never gets built.
But it reduces the risk.
Well, I think that's
what
probably
I'm
right.
for, yeah.
So the zoning, Columbus, I mean, throughout the region, people use land use development for this exact reason, right? So get in a situation where a developer wants to develop a large piece of land. It's gonna be multiple properties and basically build a special zoning code for that site by site, and it has to be abided by. Or it doesn't become abided by because it gets sold or whatever. PUD's out the window. Something like that, if there was a way to do something like that, would be a lot more helpful. I don't know that Columbus has that.
Yeah,
I mean, that would probably require a rezoning as opposed to.
yeah, it would be a rezoning to a PUD.
But that seems to be your,
And
that
that
seems to be
wouldn't,
like, it might solve a lot of your concerns.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
but that, I mean, a PUD would be difficult to apply to 13 separate parcels that were going to be owned by separate entities. That would not be a condo, you know, like, we can easily do a PUD for an apartment, 13-acre apartment complex with multiple buildings, but.
But what would happen though, if you sold off one of the lots and it didn't get built according to this, right? Then that PUD is done, that applicant no longer has the benefit of those variances or those applied things, and they'd have to come back in.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what would functionally start to happen.
Sure.
I think that's worth the conversation with the zoning. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Just noting on design.
Sure. Yeah, let's just talk about general, I mean, if we look at the sheet that we're on and then the next sheet that has
I like
the Fourth Street elevation, and then the sheet after that has the nursery elevation, and so let's just talk about size and shape of
Yeah, we
building.
could actually see sheet 6 on the PDF. AOO something. Yeah, that one. I would just say, I think this is really nice because it shows everything. I think we all have a problem with lot 1 on the corner a little bit from an articulation standpoint.
Yeah,
But the ones on, I'm sorry, what is the street to the south, I can't recall.
nursery.
Nursery, they feel really tall. Am I the only one?
If you go down the elevations of Nursery Lane, which is sheet A24, page 11 of the document set.
Difference. I mean, it's garages and half story, 1.5 stories across the street. It feels really tall.
It's not 11.
I think it goes back to the last meeting we talked about where that cross gable that's up there, the ridge is popped up. So
Yeah,
the structure's already narrow and tall as it is, but then you have that roof behind it, which pops up even higher.
I think part of it also was the very point of the rafter system.
Yeah, that second
Above
piece.
Second.
Yeah.
And it feels, I guess that's the reason I'm going back to the overall one. You see those little garages behind it? Feels even taller.
Yeah. And granted, you won't see the garages from Nursery. The only time you see the garages is through that little window of the alley.
Yeah, but if you come down this alley where the parking is, you know, you happen to drive down there, you're gonna see garage, three-story building, garage. I know that is a private drive. Other than that, and then the strangeness of
parcel 1, yeah.
were the only things that really jumped out, so.
I personally kind of like the idea of a commercial looking building amidst the residential neighborhood. That's what German Village is.
I would agree with you, but,
Articulation of it bothered me,
but yeah, it's not.
or the lack of.
Yes, it was, it was a last minute addition to try to get, I almost like took all the windows and doors and stuff off of it so that
Block there,
it just left a block there because I didn't,
haven't figured this one out.
I full on haven't figured that.
I have nothing wrong with looking at the corner being there.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think that goes back to the talking point last time. Typically, that would have been a commercial structure, you're building historically, so having a little more commercial.
I mean, what we're showing there is a true 3-story. I mean, everything else meets the intent of the 2.5-story, you know, building code. But you know, parcel 1 is certainly, we're, you know, in our mind thinking that might be a 3-story building.
Yeah, and I think that what's bothering me about it is if you thought about like the old Max Irvin's building. It fronts not the long street, it fronts the other street. And other examples you have that are mid-block, there's one on City Park, I believe, what building was that? There was a tall, and yeah, those, there's a difference in like you said, there's a base, middle, cornice to those that this is lacking.
Certainly.
But I would potentially be okay with the height. If it was made to feel right.
Right, yeah, if, okay, yeah,
You give it a commercial first floor feel.
Yep.
right,
And then
yeah.
the top gets a little bit of
Yep.
something.
And it doesn't even have to be that intense, just something that shows that kind of triggers like that.
No, I think this is a good conversation. You know, I didn't want to waste the time and resources if the thoughts of the commission were, oh, definitely not a 3-story building, but that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing a well-articulated building that would be appropriate. If it's 3 stories, will not be like flat out opposed. Okay,
I think for that spot, yes, due to location and the fact that it's right across the street from the
right,
firehouse.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
And then just what we want.
right.
It feels right.
And,
Yeah.
Right.
and that you fixed parcel too, so it doesn't have that open porch on it.
Yeah, again, we were expecting not to, have to resubmit anything until the December meeting, and then we were kind of told, hey, we'll give you another shot at it, for November. We were like, we have to design 11 buildings.
You did a pretty good job and a pretty good time.
As well as model, most of German Village.
Yeah, and the one comment that I would make that is actually contrary to some suggestion that Ned, it had to do with the arrangement of those surface parking, is that Ned, if they line them all up and create a green space across the north end, then when that lot gets developed, like if a tree goes in, it's gonna have to come back out for garage access. Whereas if they turn it, they have the opportunity to plant a tree
Well, actually,
on
that's-
the edge that,
Valid.
would be able to mature. So,
I'm not gonna argue with that, I don't think it'll survive new construction, but okay.
Well, I mean, that lot honestly isn't wide enough for a 2-car garage anyway, so, it would end up being probably a 15, 16-foot wide single car, which could stay out of its root zone if we're talking about, the next handful of years, this occurring versus, I mean, obviously, if it matures over 30 years, it's a different story, but.
What's the agreement for those parking spots? Exit.
It accompanies the use of the old engine house.
So
So there's a long lead time.
oh,
place
so
for it.
it could be a long time.
Yeah. There's renewal options.
The only other consideration on this is just because of the amount of hardscape that's being added. I mean, the density of development is there. I would like to see consideration for some permeable paving. And that, the alleyway that gets established or adjacent to the drive aisle or something of that
Is
sort.
there any permit, I mean, I'm familiar with that, but it's such a maintenance thing.
There are much better.
Yeah.
permeable pavers
It's probably
out
been
there
5,
now.
6 years since we've done it.
What it would require though is, to do it and reduce maintenance,
So-
you would be actually putting pavers down.
Is there, is the perviousness of pavers the important part, or is it just the aesthetic of a more brick feel rather than the perviousness? Because we can put pavers down, as a treatment of the surface that is more aesthetically pleasing.
Right, that would
Um,
help.
The perviousness of it is what starts to become
It's certainly more expensive pavement.
Right.
Because of the base that you have to put in.
Right.
and-
But it also
Yes.
becomes, the city Columbus planning folks, had us do it for a lot split, a front to back lot split, for a driveway. And I argued with them, I was like, a single family
Yeah.
homeowner is not gonna have any clue how to maintain this over a period of 10 years, that it's gonna be non-functional, and they didn't buy that argument, so.
I just remember us putting in pervious asphalt, being told we had to vacuum clean it. That-
Yeah. Yeah, the pervious asphalt
Yeah.
and pervious concrete's an issue, but I think the pavers were.
Textual standpoint, alleys, village are chip and seal, chip and tar, whatever you call it. The traditional, I would say if you're looking for some kind of differentiation, maybe the parking stalls become paver. If you look at the development, the Starbucks development off of Livingston, as you come in, the commercial parking, that's kind of right there off the main drive.
Yeah, those
They've got a
are
little concrete flush curb with pavers, just to separate it off, so it's not just one big
Right,
blacktop
Yeah.
drive.
yeah.
I think there's things you do. I don't love that idea permeable. I just split across 14 parcels. I just don't see how it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Get that up there and have a block party, would be nice.
Well, and you know, I completely agree with you, like, to have this all as asphalt, I don't think would be, would suit the idea of what we're trying to do here, so. But it's certainly something that we'll consider, you know, moving forward, kind of more of the design stuff. But,
Cycling back, where are we at with variances?
I think we need to,
I kindled that.
I need to kind of consult with our zoning consultant, we'll probably try to watch this conversation back, and see if we can kind of provide a succinct answer that, that may resolve some of the concerns, or there may be a zoning vehicle that could tie it to this group in the way the PUD was. I'm just not, as a zoning expert.
Yeah, and I may be thinking about that wrong.
Are we looking like every lot's got this kind of, typically what the city would have for a typical lot, but modified down to a smaller lot in the village? Is that what you're looking for?
Maybe.
The same set, you know, this is the minimum setback on Thurman. If you've got more than that, fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that kind of setting that standard, it's like you said, overriding. We're gonna override this, override it, be consistent, and then you get a very.
Consistently override what the city would apply to these. That help?
I think so. I think, yeah, we'll make an effort to,
But I think what you're showing here, the footprints you're showing here, lot sizes you're showing here, I don't see anything glaring to me as if you came and proposed this house on this lot, these variances, let's say no, just based on what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Our technique doesn't figure out, but I don't have a problem with it in concept. Just, it's hard for me to stomach approving a bunch of variances on things that may or may not be built, don't exist. Now we're looking at different footprints, different articulations. How do we deal with those?
Devil's advocate, specific. Yeah, devil's advocate, of like, somebody comes in and develops a single property, they get a bunch of variances, they decide to back out some of the property. What's the difference? I don't see a way.
well, I mean, and that is the vehicle within the architectural review
What's the
districts.
difference, right? And I'm trying to.
You still have,
I get it, yeah.
you still have control over what building goes
It's the
there.
size that's different, right? The impact.
Yeah.
If I own,
So you're saying we should be more careful about what variances we.
well, I mean, it's. Have a conversation. Change happening, but how do we with better tie our better?
I don't see the way to do it would be to make the variance contingent upon the structures being built, and I don't know that the city zoning
No, you know what they do in the downtown.
facilitates that kind of.
You know what they do in the downtown district and in Franklin, is all zoning decisions are on those reviews. We would have that power. I'm sorry. You're opening a can of worms.
No, I think it's a valuable discussion, and
I think we're looking for a zoning code for these smaller sites that is analogous to the city zoning for big.
right. Well, and maybe with the health department.
Say on these little sites, it's gotta be 60.
Yeah, I think everything on Thurman, 50% makes sense. For some reason, you have the,
Well, I mean,
West
that,
part of
yeah,
the 60.
I mean, that doesn't require a variance, because that would be the lot coverage of the R2F. So, yeah, and so we're talking about lot coverage of 60 on the corner because of the way that it would be positioned in a fairly standard corner parcel.
So can I suggest when you come to us and you say that you're gonna maintain an R50 on Thurman, say that to us. Okay, that on these lot sites, the current zoning requirement of 50, we're not asking for a variance.
Okay.
Just so we understand.
Right.
We're gonna wanna see that.
Sure.
This stays in place, this is what you're deviating from and why.
Right.
That'll help us to make it go faster.
Yep.
Yeah, if you're zoning expert, they come back and say, these variances are only, they expire after a year.
It's, yeah, I mean, site plans they can be extended for a year, but I've been in a couple of development commission meetings where after a year, after one extension, they start to get a little queasy about continuing.
Well, for instance, a building code submission, if you submit for a building permit, there's no activity for.
Right.
Then they cancel.
And the CO.
Logan, do you want any more, do you want to have any more questions? Is there something I haven't covered?
No, a little, I mean, we are probably, the goal is still gonna be to come back and get the site zoned in its entirety. So I'm hoping that after our consultation with our zoning attorney, that we can kind of simplify this and present it in a way that allows us to move forward on that path. It sounded like some of the contention was coming from the carriage houses, and a lot of these variances pertain to those. So we'll get a tactic together that maybe it's coming in across the board garages, and then we singly, like, we'll go, if it's a specific home, we could come in.
Yeah,
And I don't know the complications of that without talking to our attorney.
And I think, once we take out some of the more complicated ones, we're really just talking about lot coverage. And if you're comfortable, with the lot coverages that we're showing, then, that it might be more simple to look at it that way.
Like site one or parcel one, we want a bigger home.
Right.
It needs the higher coverage ratio.
I think even some of the side yard stuff, I mean, right now, it's like, it's onesie twosies, and it's like, it's the same lot size. Why are they onesie twosies right now when we don't know what's gonna be built there yet? But I think we understand that you're gonna have to get some variance in the first place. Does it make sense to just apply for here's the new guideline for these lots? These lots are gonna have 3 feet, end of story, work within it. If we gotta go beyond that, that's just a specific variance for that one development.
And maybe there's 3 sections, maybe there's the third section.
I think that's.
Yeah, that's how I think of it.
Right.
And if need a larger, parcel one needs a larger one, make all the other ones larger too.
Okay.
I said that, but.
And some of them are addressing very specific things like parcel 4, the home is existing and the lot line is existing. So we're bringing it into compliance in
Right.
existing conditions.
Yeah.
Separate that out.
Right.
Yeah, I might have a section, if these are existing conditions, we're just bringing up.
Yeah, I think-
Recommendations on those.
Yeah. I think that we can probably create different exhibits to address different sections, and that might be helpful.
We can get a good baseline, what needs to deviate from that new baseline.
Right. Okay. I think that's is a good discussion. I appreciate your guys' time.
And then you think, now, if we come with that, is that something that we could attempt to take action on? If it's laid out clearly for that next meeting with, possibly even the zoning attorney here.
Well, so then I don't do the same thing I did last month and put my foot in my mouth where I said I was okay with voting on all of that. We're gonna have to take it as it comes.
Well, and here,
I would say, bring it to the business meeting and let's take a look at it and see if we can do that.
And I think if you're identifying like a baseline for the sections of the lots,
Yeah.
I think we can agree to lot sizes. I believe we can agree to that new baseline.
Yeah.
I just don't think we can agree to the onesie twosie things until we actually see the design for those
Right.
things.
Okay. Yep. I got it.
Make sure we discuss it in the business.
Yeah.
And just a reminder, the deadline is for Wednesday, November 10th, just to let you guys know.
Yep. If we do want to take action on individual homes because we have them prepared, should I submit them as a separate application with their own address, or should I submit them as, you know, because we have the garage
Individual
discussion.
sign should probably be individual applications, just for the record keeping and the history of the
Yeah.
lot.
Okay.
I think you'll have to have the lot splits in place first before we can do that.
I should be able to get, the map room should be able to give me,
Okay.
they'll give me temporary zoning addresses, so it won't be like official certified addresses, but I can, and you know, most of the Thurman lots and even the South Fourth lots, there's some existing addresses there. So it would be nursery lots that don't really exist. Okay, well, thank you for your time.
And thank you guys for moving forward.
Thank you.
Each meeting.
Thanks. Got a lot done quickly. Sir, were you here for the application? No? Okay. The next application. Oh, gotta go over
No,
there.
you gotta set up.
No.
Oh. Item 21 for conceptual review. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Anthony
State
Harkey.
your name.
Anthony Harkey.
Item number GB 2111-035. Proposed work description is proposed addition to the rear of 364 Jackson Street. Addition will be approximately 14 feet wide by 20 feet long. Addition to contain basement storage, first floor office den and half bath, second floor master bedroom and bath and reading nook and loft above master bedroom. Second floor addition will be added above existing kitchen where current bathroom dormer is located. This addition will require removal of existing second floor dormer bathroom that was potentially added during the 2005 condo conversion. Intent to utilize existing doorways for all access into new addition. No new openings to be created if rear masonry wall of structure. Proposed siding materials will be lap siding, floral, wood, other variants likely required for side yard conditions. Proposed converting attic into habitable space. This will require dormer for headroom stairs. Stairs will be relocated. The dormer will be at the rear of the roof to prevent being seen from the public way. Current roof is asphalt shingles. Application was seen as conceptual on the February 2017 hearing. Staff analysis, the property was originally built in 1904 as a two-unit family. Multifamily was converted to 2 condos in 2005. Current owner converted back to a 2-unit family, multifamily 2019. Taken from the February 7th, 2017 Durham Village Commission hearing minutes. Commissioner Hours had some concerns about the chimney being completely swallowed by an addition. Need to consider whether the chimney will be consumed or removed. Commissioner Panzer stated that he didn't think that addition could be approved for one side of the duplex that could not be mirrored on the other side. He had less of an issue with the rear second door chimney being consumed by an addition since it was likely not original to the house, but part of the rear addition. Rear chimney is not visible from the front of the house. Commissioner Hours commented that the commission needs to consider whether it is okay for the existing shed addition to act as the connector to the new addition. Has the applicant considered moving the interior stairs to allow for an open floor plan? Commissioners asked if it's possible to increase the exposure of the rear wall by turning the bathroom. Commissioner Thiel stated that he does not see the loss of the rear chimney as the biggest issue, but rather the back corner where the roof comes down and everything is being chopped off with just 1 foot sliver of a gesture to where a wall used to be. Staff recommends the commission should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at future GBC meetings. No action is required.
Thank you. Let's walk you quick through the materials. So the first page is just the survey of the site, so you can see the site in context. Structure is set back from the road. It's the only house set back from the road to have a front yard space. The next couple of sheets are sandboard maps of what was there, showing that it was built sometime 1904-ish. And the structure remained the same. The only real change is that there used to be what looked like an open covered porch on the rear, where the deck currently is now. I think the porch is below that deck actually still. You jump to page 7, that's just aerial of location. So we're within a couple feet, both sides, pretty packed tight in there, and you'll see some elevations later on of the views of the property. The next page That's just streetscape views, looking at it from the different angles. Only 3 feet away from the building on the east, and then I think about 4.5 to 5 feet away from the building on the west. So the addition would be on the back portion, west side of the house, west unit. So seeing that addition, you're only going to see it very vaguely from the top right view, looking back. It's pretty much hidden. The next sheet, that's kind of looking at it from looking down the side of the house, how close they are, the view you would see. And then the bottom two are the views from Grant, looking between the houses. You'll just have a very small glimpse through the houses there. And then looking from Livingston down the parking lot of Starbucks, there's a very large walnut tree that blocks all access, and the hackberry is pretty tall too. You won't see it from Livingston either, pretty much self-contained. On the next sheet, that's the view of the current rear of the house. You can see the bathroom dormer up top. So it'll be the right side is where we'd be looking to put the addition on. We'd be using the door into the bathroom in that dormer to get access to the second floor. Be using the door at the far right to get access into the first floor. So no new openings in the brick. Next page, laser scans. So have all that documentation, have hair level measurements for the future. Next sheet. That's massing, looking at what the addition would be. Not totally sold on the roof lines and everything else, but you can see taking out the dormer on the bottom half of the house in this view to add that connecting piece. Then the massing on the back would be the primary new addition, new structure. You can see the small dormer off the back of the current house, existing house, to get the stair access up into the attic space. Next couple of views are just 3D isometrics of what's currently there versus kind of proposed. Yeah, not tied on the fenestration, not tied on the roof slopes, just kind of showing massing in general, what you would see. Going down the elevations, existing versus new proposed. Floor plans of what we're kind of looking at proposing. So first floor, reconfiguring the kitchen, taking the stairs, which currently run east-west. We're looking at moving them to run north-south to kind of line up with that door in the bathroom above to open up that first floor. You can see the rear door going into that den area. So that access to it. Next. Second floor, you see the top of the stairs right there. That's the current bathroom door. Go back into the space. The lot's only 33 feet wide. It's about 14 feet wide interior. So it's pretty narrow, shotgun straight back. The next space, that's just kind of the attic space and the bedroom, high vaulted ceiling in the back. Next picture there. Kind of got the idea of looking at a different kind of architectural styling as opposed to, because it's so narrow, trying to keep away from the very small, narrow look, try to pull some architectural feature and kind of give it a little more horizontal feel. It's not so tall and skinny. That's the architectural style I'm looking at going towards. That's the items that I have for you.
Is it still a duplex?
It's a duplex, but no longer condos.
Rent the other side out.
Yeah, the other side's currently rented out.
Interesting how asymmetrical the front is and how symmetrical the back is.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
The idea of using this kind of architecture was to provide that vertical divide between the two sides, to potentially give some a change of architecture if I decide to add on the other side down the line. And I really can't have any fenestration through that wall because it's going to end up being a fire-rated wall to divide the two units.
On the east elevation. How important is the loft to you?
Erica really likes it. That's the space I'm giving her to have her own.
Critically important.
Yeah.
It's just, it makes it feel taller, right?
Yeah.
And my thought was if going with this kind of architecture, we'd be able to pull that back above, so it's not just a single vertical wall. It's meant to be more of a dormer, just kind of read as a shed extension.
Yeah, because it's so far, because it's so narrow, it's only 14 feet, you gotta take it pretty much.
We could pull it back in the floor plans that we're working on. The idea is that it's just, again, like a little loft space above, it's not the full width of the entire bedroom floor. So I think it's just reading as taller than what it's actually gonna end up being.
The dormer extension up the back, where you got the bathroom and stuff, and then you got the addition. The roof line's driving me nuts. I have no problem with this, like this at the back with the flat roof, but maybe split the difference between your peak that you've got now and your spring point. And go flat. I mean, that's, the rest of it I had no problem with. That's just, and nobody's gonna see it. That's the other part of it.
Right.
So, like,
If you flip back to the elevations, just so I can understand. So right now, that's that sliver right there. So you can see the brick is the current kitchen roof. That kind of- the shed roof coming outside. And that little sliver, we've taken that roof and tried to get it pretty flat, a little bit slow, but pretty much flat, going off to shed the water.
yeah.
We could probably play with that a little bit.
You're talking here?
Yeah, that piece there.
Yeah.
Are you looking at?
I'm talking about coming up here like this.
Yeah.
Pulling back, whatever you want to do, but this is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we go to a different architecture,
I think from a lot of stuff and not getting.
if we go with different architecture than that whole pitching part.
I would. I would. I mean, nobody's gonna see it, and I think you're spending a lot of money here.
Yeah.
That you're not getting any benefit from.
Okay.
Where if you wanted to go up and do glass with transom windows, and then your flat roof. Just my thought.
I think that's where we're heading anyway.
Yeah.
The design is to go flat roof. It's just-
Yeah.
This is just quick sketching up, get something in massing wise, just get the feel. of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that really bothers me about it. Okay. I have no problem with the back. Eventually you'll figure out what you want to do with the other side if you want to do anything. You're right, don't put windows in.
I think the other architecture, like there's something, this feels heavy over top of this too.
Yeah.
You know, with these small columns, so if this was slightly, if it felt like this was cantilevered right out.
Yeah. We could do some detailing on that, do something to it. Right now, it's just, we want to have an overhang so we can hang out and watch the rain.
You could carry this line right across. And then do clear story windows up here. And then another fucking one.
Okay, sure.
It ties it together. Yeah. And to me, that solves this problem here. Carry this line over, it kisses better.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Up on the wall.
Yeah, just do a circle, just do glass above that line. Be fantastic. Ring light fixture in the middle, yeah.
Like,
No, I agree with all that, yeah, the shed door on the back just looks.
yeah. Any problem with the dormer for the stairs up into the third floor of the front of your house? Try to keep it simple and match the rest of the architecture, but you never can see it.
Yeah, correct.
So
I didn't even pick that up first.
you get access to the entire attic.
Yes, yeah.
Makes sense.
Not a ton of space, but it's a room worth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring more prettier pictures next time.
Get up to the attic now.
What's up there now?
Yeah, how do you get up there now?
There's a hatch.
Oh, the ladder.
That ladder comes down. Nice expensive metal folding ladder. Wood ladder broke.
Oh.
You fell.
Yeah, I'm a metal ladder.
Aluminum, they're lighter weight.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the end of the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Do we have to do anything with the ones that didn't show up?
We do. We do
Yes,
need to either continue or go to bed.
Did any of them drop off now or they?
180 Thurman, that's the second time that they.
Yes. Yes, so I think they get a third or second, I've been talking to Jamie about this, because we've had some applications that we've seen multiple times. I think third time is not the charm, and I think I'll need to contact them to tell them to, let me know when they want to come back on or reapply. We can continue as of now, and then I can, talk to him a little bit further about that.
And as far as Thurman goes, you drive by it, I believe that they're patching and fixing the base of the columns as is. They look like they were clean and white. So they're just cutting out the rot and replacing it, looks like. So,
Take a look. And
And 707 South Sixth Street, number 12. So I walked by there today, and I'm not sure about this, but I think there's other work being done on the rear of the house.
Okay.
It wasn't, I only had a narrow glimpse of it, but it looked like fresh, unpainted lap siding on back. So maybe that they're doing something else
I've been in communication with
in
them.
addition to the roof.
Trying to get them to get applications sent, because of course this one was done without, prior to approval. So I will look into that for you.
And there's a concrete block garage in the back of it that's getting pretty dilapidated.
Yeah,
That's
that's supposed to be.
right, so we'll take action on these three to continue. Is there a motion on item 4, GB 2109028 to continue?
I move to continue.
Second.
Second, any question on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Against? Abstained? Ayes have it, motion passes. Item 12, GB 21-11-026, is there a motion? Continue?
So moved.
Second. Any question on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstains? Ayes have it, motion passes. Item 13, GB 21-11-027, is there a motion to continue?
So move.
Second.
Question on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstains? Ayes have it, motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second, third, fourth.
Aye. There's no voting on those, right?
Yeah, there is voting, just no debate.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Abstains? Have it. Passes. We're adjourned.
And I'll say again that